True North convenience stores, Off the Leash Draft Night special starts now.
We're on, Mark.
Hey!
Just like that.
I thought I was doing some of this program. I saw great stuff. I'm like, where's it? We're right here. We're live. We're off and running. Off the leash. We already lost Brian. So it's down for the count. It's Off the Leash Draft Night.
Some guys can handle the debut, the opening round of the draft Friday.
I just totally
Well, the lights came on and Schwab immediately collapsed.
I'm looking at these monitors and I'm seeing this stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's not us.
You have done this, Will. Yeah.
Jeff Slauson, our digital journalist, the awesome Jeff Slauson. Chris Fry, Anthony Lyman, 92.3 The Fan. So here's the deal. We're here for 3 hours. We're in this room. We are in Berea. We are in Pittsburgh. We got a camera at Public Hall where the Browns are doing their draft show. Ashley Holder is in Pittsburgh. She will join us 10 minutes-ish or so. And then Leah is in Berea at Browns World headquarters for whatever we get out of there. We don't know when the press conferences are coming. They're either going to come after they make a pick, or after they make both picks, or after the first round, or whatever it is they're going to do. So we're going to be checking in with those two in a little bit. But guys, it is finally here. We talk about this draft all the time for months, and it is finally here. How are we all feeling?
The draft is my favorite time of year.
I love it.
I think it is my favorite football day of the year. There's no extreme disappointment. There's disappointment, but there's no extreme disappointment. There's so much that goes into this as far as looking at what the trades could be, who the players are going to be. There's so much hope. It is my favorite day of the year. I look into it for literally months. Mark, you and I, for fantasy football perspective, talk about the draft
forever,
extensively.
Yep.
I'm hyped, man. I think this is going to get wild. I think there's going to be 6, 7, 8 teams that make trades. I think we're going to see a ridiculous amount of receivers going at the same time.
Yep.
I think this is going to be fun.
Yep.
Well, remember, this is one of those bizarre drafts. We already know who the number one guy is, right?
Yep.
Even though he's not in the same vein of Trevor Lawrence or, you know, over the years, some of those stalwarts that are guaranteed number one, despite a Heisman and a national championship for Fernando Mendoza. We are at a point where the Browns are in this thing twice. And they always say the more cracks you have, then a little more margin for error. And as a Browns fan and somebody who has seen some of the most dreadful drafts in human history, not just the NBA, not NFL, we're talking every sport, we're talking fantasy drafts with your buddies. I am telling you, you haven't enough cracks at it. Eventually, you're going to hit. And so I am optimistic, even in a draft that's not considered made for prime time. I do think they have a good shot, and hopefully riding the momentum of last year's draft where, newsflash, the Browns actually added good football players that helped their football team.
Astounding.
You're right. Just to piggyback off Anthony, I mean, they got it right last year. They had 2 really good players that were productive, and hopefully they can go 2 in a row. Listen, these drafts, all right, you use analytics, you know, you use what they did in high school to college and now. It is such a hard predictor on who's going to be the guy and who's going to be a bust. That's why, and I don't want to disagree with Jeff. I know you look highly up on the draft. To me, it's like, it's entertainment, it's fun, but I'm a looking forward guy. Let's look in 5 years to see if these guys pan out. And that's what we're going to be talking about all night. This guy he's projected because he has his measurables and he runs a 40.
But that's the fun of it, man.
That's the sport. Score. Actually, we're going to do that at some point.
Yeah.
We're going to get into, you know, that you have to wait 3 years. So
Right.
we're going to pull up the 2023 draft at
There
some
you go.
point and get into it. It's not pretty. All right, so the
Raiders
Browns
are officially on the clock, by the way.
They are? Okay,
Yes.
so that's where I was going. This is obviously in Pittsburgh. The Raiders have just gone on the clock, which is actually a little early. League usually makes them wait. Browns picking 6th. We're speculating they're going to make a pick somewhere around 9 o'clock, maybe a little bit sooner. So we're going to start here, looking at the Browns at 6. We're going to go love, like, loathe. I love it if the Browns do this. I don't love it, but I like it if they do this. I loathe it. I hate it if they do this. It can be a player. It can be a transaction. It can be a position group, whatever you want. Slaw, start us off.
So I like offensive tackle. I think it's safe. Offensive tackle's like a nice pair of shoes, right? You get it, nothing fancy. They're like New Balance shoes. They're going to work for you. They're dad shoes. They're going to work for you. They're going to do the job. Where's my camera? This one, there we go. I love the wide receiver because I think if you're going to go for it, you're going to go for it. There hasn't been a wide receiver draft in the first round in a long, long time for the Browns. I absolutely loathe a Browns trade up. Trading back totally fine. This is not the time to get rid of your picks, to go up and get somebody, trade back, take an offensive tackle, take a wide receiver, totally fine. If you trade up, I think that is a terrible decision because I think that drastically ruins the rest of the potential that you had in the draft. And I think that also just shows you weren't necessarily as confident in some of those guys in the latter half that many people potentially are. So my love wide receiver, like offensive tackle. I loathe a trade up.
No, it's very interesting right now, and it's been fun to monitor over the last week. I don't know how crazy you guys get with the betting markets, but Kalshi, which is not gospel, remember, it's a lot of normal human beings that think they might have inside information. Apparently, political battles are also
Is that
something
the one
that
you
people
can bet
wager
on, like how much celery will be at the grocery
It's
store?
all
Okay, great.
on the table for you. But right now, Spencer Fano is the guy that has the most amount of wagers coming in for the Browns. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything other than some people who might be inside trying to strike while the iron is hot. But it was Carnell Tate just a few days ago, and they have gone in separate directions since then. So just something to monitor as, look, you knew Andrew Berry wasn't going to say anything specific regarding his media availabilities, what they were going to do with that pick. I think conventional wisdom has been all along in this draft where there's not a chasm between a lot of these players in the top 12, actually, that, hey, might make sense logically to move down. You just can't go so far that you strike out when you have two obvious needs, and we are talking about offensive line and wide receiver. And if this were any other draft, it would be criminal to not go with an offensive lineman at 6, but in this draft, you're hearing project for so many of these offensive linemen.
Yeah. So you loathe the trade back to take yourself out.
I'm saying, I think the trade down, especially if you can do it with the Cowboys, who are sitting there at what, number 12 overall? All right, that is not a free fall. That's not a plummet. You still can get really talented players there, and then you get another crack at it depending on which trade chart, which value chart you're utilizing. And when Jerry Jones is involved, you throw that all out the window because he's desperate from time to time. That guy, it's a race against time for him, so you never know when you can extract a little bit more.
All right, Fry, love, like, loathe.
I would love if the Browns pick a receiver. The Browns averaged 16 points per game last year. Okay. That was 31st out of 32 teams in the league. They need weapons. I don't care if Deshaun Watson or Shadur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Jeff Slauson is under center. You got to have weapons to throw. That's first things first. Everyone's going to double team Fannin. Jerry Jeudy, when he catches the ball, he's fine. Isaiah Bond is still a project. You got to go get a receiver first. I would like it if they get an offensive lineman because can't get a pass off unless you have a lineman blocking for you. So if they go lineman, I'm okay with that. But I'm with lineman pretty much everyone else. If they trade, that's to me, it doesn't make any sense because isn't the point of the draft, gentlemen, is to win now, to try to find the best players to win now. They did it last year. Mm-hmm. They should take the same approach this year. Those are my three
Well,
picks.
I think, but it depends on the team. The Browns are kind of in a win now, but they're also not totally. So, like, you can get the project. You can get the guy that's the high ceiling,
right,
but potentially has a really bad floor to just see because they have the time. Browns aren't going for a Super Bowl this year. So they can think about it differently.
So you're right. If you're going to do that, it's one of those, you got to be right, and we'll find out. All right, so mine are a little unusual here. For me, the love is Carnell Tate, but that is the only receiver I love there because I can't find anyone that says Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson or any of these other receivers is a top 6 to 8 player in this draft. And I don't want to reach for somebody else. You got a top 6 asset. Draft a top 6 asset. I love Tate there. I don't even care if he's gone and you take another player who's a defender or Jeremiah Love. I don't care. Take a top player. Don't grab a guy that's like the 12th best player in the draft.
Right.
Yep.
So you weren't blown away by one workout video TikTok that we saw from a week ago against no defensive players where Tyson was floating in air? That didn't do it for you,
No, it doesn't. When you're being defended by air, it doesn't do that for me.
Did he get injured in that video too?
He actually got up and walked away and lived to see another day.
Interesting.
It's obviously a fair complaint. Now, I think he played in 9 games last year, and You know, it's tough because every GM in the NFL, at least their fan base, will always say, hey, that could have been a guy in the top 5 had he have stayed healthy. You can always talk your way into a lot of these guys. Say, oh, if it wasn't for a character concern with another guy, he would have been in the first round. And I joke, every year about 50 guys should have gone in the first round if you believe the fans of the teams that draft those guys.
Can I just really quickly before Mark continues, the Tyson thing? Missed the entire 2023 season with a knee injury. Since then, knee, collarbone, hamstring.
That's a trend.
So he's the Chase DeLauder of wide receivers.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
I love that. Yeah, good for you, Mark.
I mean, I'm right. I love the kid. He
Yeah.
works hard, but
That's why you're my
every
guy.
6 weeks it's a new injury.
Yep.
He hasn't had one yet, though, so far. Keep hitting, Chase. Keep hitting. All right. The like for me, honestly, I would not care if they took a defensive player at 6. You could say I'm outside my mind. I wouldn't care if they took a defensive player or Love. Kind of building on what I said. I know it's not a huge need, but I'd rather you take an elite prospect at a position you don't particularly need, but still makes your club better over a non-elite. And by I mean non-elite, doesn't mean they're a bad player. I just mean you probably don't need to take them at 6. Take them at that point. My loathe would be a trade up. My loathe would be taking a receiver not named Tate.
Yeah.
I don't even mind if they take Kenyon Sadiq. Don't take him at 6. Those are my lows. I'm basically looking at Reese, guys that probably won't be there. Reese won't be there. Bailey won't be there. Mansour Delane might be there. Fine. Love would be there. Fine. If
You would
Tate's
be okay with Love. You'd be okay
I would absolutely be okay with Jared
Oh,
Goff.
I'm Mark on that
love
one.
that. I would love it.
This is a team completely bereft of playmakers, and he is the best playmaker
is.
in the draft.
Yeah,
And I know they
I
already
agree.
have Quinshon Judkins, but you could take him at 6. You could get Concepcion or at Cooper or one of those other types at 24 who move back up from 24 to 20, 19, whatever, to go get your receiver. I would love it. I know it's weird. I know there's only one ball, and they have 2 backs. I don't care. They can't score points.
Right.
He's the
Get
best
dude
player in
that
the
can
draft.
move the ball.
I just get a little nervous. Last year, I think Judkins led the league in amount of times where he was brought down 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and it wasn't because
But they've
he
already
wasn't
signed
talented.
3 guards, traded for a right tackle, and have extra picks
But
in
you
their
need
back
depth,
pocket.
Mark. You got to have depth.
They've addressed their offensive line.
Yes.
I didn't say they fixed the offensive
Right.
line.
There you go. That's a good
They've
point.
addressed it.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Gentlemen, I have breaking news.
What's
Okay.
that? We got to take a break.
Fernando
in a second.
Mendoza was taken by the Raiders.
Shocking. All right, we all knew that was going to happen. So the Indiana Hoosier
Wow.
is off to the Raiders as the number 1 overall pick. We are going to step aside. When we come back, we will go to the scene of the draft. Ashley Holder in Pittsburgh, then Leah Doherty in Berea at Browns World headquarters. It is draft night, off the leash, special edition. Stick around.
You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
Off the leash draft night continues. We are off and running. One pick in the books. It is Mendoza. Jets on the board. We are actually going to go out to Pittsburgh right now, the scene of the draft. Ashley Holder, also with Zach Keenan of our 19 News staff. Guys, you made the trip out there today. What's the like? Let's start here. How many Browns people made the trip? We hate going to Pittsburgh, but it's an understandable trip this time. How many Browns folks are you seeing out there?
Well, there is a good amount of Browns fans. We've been able to see a couple today, and also I'm a Browns. I'm not a Browns fan, but I'm a Steelers fan, and so it's been cool to be here at Acrisure Stadium at this point. But the kind of cool thing is that you get to hear all of the fans getting excited for all of the guys getting their name called, and also all of the boos for Commissioner Roger Goodell, literally right here in Acrisure Stadium.
Yeah, actually, this is probably a pretty average Steelers home game regular season crowd, right about with the lines. No, it's been really fun to watch all the people outside at the draft experience where we are right now, all around the city. It's packed. They've got a lot of streets closed off. This place is really popping off for the NFL draft.
And it's kind of cool because they have a lot of these people right here, a lot of the fans. They're sitting here. I'm not sure how much you can see, but they're actually sitting on the field where the Steelers play, so that's an experience for themselves, as well as they're laying down, they're hanging out, they're waiting for this Jets next pick, which possibly could be Arvell Reese out of Cleveland, the former Glenville star. How amazing has his story been?
I had to go from a tar blooder to a Buckeye to a New York Jet. That's an incredible path to follow in his life. And Ashley, I know that you spoke at length about the hurdles that he's had to overcome in his personal life. And on top of that, yeah, he's also just an incredible football player at the linebacker position. He's a little slim for an edge, but at linebacker, he really has shined in that outside linebacker position. I think that's a scary prospect for whichever team decides to draft him. Hopefully they're not in the AFC North.
Yeah, we'll have a chance to speak to him, hopefully, not too long after he's called. The thing about it is, like, we spoke about his story and how much it took for him to get to this position. He talked so much about what his former high school coach did for him, and that is Ted Ginn Sr., and how pivotal he was to his career and just how he was able to get him to where he is now. And Ted Ginn actually is here in the room with him and going to celebrate this moment. It's actually going on right now.
Yeah, we're going to listen right now.
Exactly who it's going to be. Okay,
David Bailey. Wow.
It's not Arvell, but we know that he's expected to be a top 5 pick. So
Arvell Reese maybe breathing a sign of relief night now that he doesn't have to play for the Jets, right?
Right. All right, we are here at Acrisure Stadium. We are going to send it back to you, Mark, back in the studio. We'll be out here all night, and we will be talking to you guys pretty soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. Great stuff out there in Pittsburgh. And yes, while they were doing the report, Bailey goes. So, Reese, this is already a little bit of a drama thing here in the draft because some people thought it was close to certainty that he would go 2. We are going to now go from Pittsburgh to Berea. Leah Doherty standing by, along with Fred Greetham, I understand, of the OBR. Fred always joins us here on Off the Leash, so it's appropriate to have you on now, guys. What's the scene out there like? I know I've been out there many times. The media, you're just sitting around on pins and needles, aren't you?
Mark, sorry, you might have cut out, so sorry if I missed the last half of your question there. He was asking what the scene was like out here. Probably nothing like it is in Pittsburgh, I would imagine. We just saw some kiddos come. They had like a little kiddos pre-draft event from 5:30 to 7:30. We can hear the birds chirping out here. It's actually a pretty peaceful night in Berea.
It is compared to last year, Leah. There was a lot with the number 2 pick and a lot of hype about Travis Hunter, and we all know what happened, trade down, so forth. But yeah, I mean, it is serene and calm, beautiful weather. Can't complain.
No complaints. It's maybe the calm before the storm that always is kind of how it happens on draft night, as you know better than anyone covering this team. We think the obvious choice is wide receiver, O-line. Those are your biggest needs headed into the draft, but Andrew Berry loves to make a move.
It never works the way the obvious choice, and he even said that, it's like everybody expected us to take the pick last year. We traded down. This year, y'all expecting us to trade down. So what does that mean? They'll probably trade down if they can, but I wouldn't be surprised any direction they go. I mean, you need the tackle, you need the wide receiver, and another wide receiver. So naturally, they'll probably get 2 defensive players in the first round.
That's what's funny. I had people asking me, what do you think the Browns are going to do tonight? And I said, well, there's kind of 2 different ways you can answer it. You can say, what do I think the Browns should do, and what do we think they're actually going to do? I'm curious, Fred, what do you think they're actually going to do with that number 6 pick?
I think when it's all said and done, they're going to make a simple choice. Take the best receiver on their board. In my opinion, it'd be Carnell Tate. But whoever they have, you need playmakers. You fired Kevin Stefanski because your offense scored 16 points a game. How do you score more points if you don't get weapons that can score points? Obviously, you need offensive help on the line. They've addressed that. So, yes, just don't overthink this. Make the pick that will help you score points.
And it's going to be hard to top the draft we saw from the Browns last year. I mean, that was Andrew Berry's most successful one to date, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it might have been one of the most successful, in franchise history. I mean, going back to only the Clay Matthews, Ozzie Newsome, when they got them both in the first round, this had more, maybe not Hall of Fame players, but more production immediately. You had 4 or 5 guys immediately broke into the starting lineup. So I just think that, yes. I remember, Leah, 2011, don't want to bring this up. The Browns had the 6th pick, and they traded down, and they got 5 picks. The only one you could probably remember is Phil Taylor, maybe Brandon Weeden, because they took him in the next year. But they traded to the Falcons, and the Falcons took Julio Jones. Now, I'm not saying Mekhi Lemon or Carnell Tate or Julio Jones, but take the player that can help you now.
Well, Mark, there's a lot of what ifs we could say over here, but we really don't know until the Browns get to that 6th pick what they're going to end up doing. But it is peaceful and calm right now.
All right, check back in when you got something. Obviously, that's where the press conferences are going to be, and we don't know how that's going to work. Sometimes they come out right after they make a pick, or sometimes they wait till the entire round is over, or they wait till all of their picks are over. So we're not exactly sure when we're going to get stuff from Andrew Berry and company. All right, guys, the Cardinals are now on the clock.
This is the tipping point, in my opinion.
So a lot of people thought the tipping point would have been at 2.
Yeah. So here's why. Yeah, can we pull up? So the Cardinals here at 3. There's a belief they could potentially take Love. Arvell Reese is still on the board, which many thought was the top edge. So that could potentially bring in some suitors that would want to trade for him. If they do take Love, does that mess up Tennessee's plan? Does Tennessee then trade out of that spot?
I think it might. Josina moments ago said, according to her source, it is Love at that pick, which we'll wait and see what happens there.
Which pick? Arizona or Tennessee?
Arizona, and that has been some of the speculation. Again, teams that miss the playoffs, taking running backs. There is a very checkered past when it comes to that, but obviously how dynamic people have talked about Jeremiah Love over the last month, even talking about putting him in the slot. We seldom see that. We hear that a lot with a lot of the explosive, dynamic running backs that can also catch the ball out of the backfield. Normally they end up just using them gimmicky screens. We'll see, but very interesting. Of course, also that Arvell Reese did not go number 2, despite all the betting markets having Reese, the Glenville native and Ohio State product.
Confirmed. It is Jeremiah Love at 3. I love that pick.
Yeah.
I mean, that is awesome for the Cardinals. He's so good. I mean, he's just, there's no you don't have to be like a football person. Just say he's good.
Oh yeah,
he's just good at football.
He's one of those people that your mom could sit down and watch 5 minutes of a game and be like, that dude's the best player on the field.
I will tell you firsthand experience. Notre Dame played Arkansas this year, and he ran through us like a hot knife through butter. I mean, he's that good.
You try and look at pros and cons with a lot of players, and the cons are he could be nicer sometimes. I don't know. They're not really firm cons because he's just so talented.
He could be nicer.
He doesn't make eggs the way that we like it. I don't know. It's always something ludicrous because of how talented this guy is.
It's like complaining about the floor mats on a new car. Hey, these things are terrible.
Right. Honestly, the only con with him, opening game of the year against Miami, Jeremiah Love struggled, but if you watch the tape, it wasn't his fault at all. One of those, again, and Browns fans should know this firsthand watching Judkins last year, you could be as dynamic as all get out, but if guys are getting to you behind the line of scrimmage, there's only so much. You can't just leap over every single one of them.
And that just speaks to Miami, how good they were early on. So, yeah.
Interesting. Ian Rappaport's reporting that no calls were incoming to Arizona. So all this belief that there was all this hubbub to trade up to 3,
nothing
didn't happen.
Wow.
All right, so it is Tennessee now on the board, and this is where if you are a Carnell Tate fan, like I am, I do not understand why they have not been linked to Tate. The scuttlebutt never connects them to Tate. Their best receiver is a guy they just signed, is Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, I like Wan'Dale Robinson, but if he is your hands-down wide receiver one, and you don't have a tight end really to speak of, and your running backs aren't necessarily explosive, and you say you want to build up your number one pick from a year ago, Cam Ward, I don't know how this isn't Carnell Tate, but I haven't found anyone that said, oh, yeah, Tennessee's on Tate.
Yeah,
well, what about Arvell Reese here?
Yeah, same thing. He's the best player on the board right now.
This is my point, is they don't have any playmakers, and the best receiver on the draft is sitting right there. But
but Reese is right. I think if you're going to go by talent there,
I wouldn't go that far.
That's the only one that I would say.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but that's the only one that I would say would kind of trump this, right?
He's pretty hard to pass up.
Well, and obviously you have a young quarterback who you want to get, once you've got a quarterback that you think you have established. And look, it was dreadful first half of the season for Cam Ward. I will say second half of the year, Browns fans got a chance to see him too. I think he got a lot more comfortable, and it does take some seasoning and some time. These guys don't all hit the ground running from moment one.
I think I wasn't a big fan of, I don't want to sound bad, I didn't think Ward had a shot to be all that good when they drafted him. And it was because, if you remember last year, much like this year, they said it's a one-quarterback draft. He's clearly the guy. If he had been in the previous year's quarterback class with like Bryce and I think it was Stroud and those guys, people would have said he would have been like the fourth quarterback off the board. And that kind of tells you he's only the one because there's no one else there. But to Lyman's point, he got a lot better in the second half.
He did.
And maybe he's a guy.
He is. I mean, you got to think back in college, he was at Washington State. No exposure. He goes to Miami, and he gets better competition. One season there, and his poise, I think a lot of people were impressed with his poise in the pocket. And he didn't rush. And that's what really attracted a lot of NFL suitors to say, hey, he was the number one pick. And so far, I mean, he had a decent first season. It was a rookie season, but a lot of things expected from him in year two.
So, Mark, do you think wide receiver here?
I think they
Titans?
should take him, but I think you're on. I think Reese is there.
Yeah.
A lot of people have Reese as the best player in this draft.
Yeah.
Between him and Love.
Is the best player.
I had Reese as my second best player. I had Love as my first. Number one.
Usually, if you got a list of who people thought the best player, it usually was Arvell Reese or Jeremiah Love. And if he's the best player, and he's kind of hard to pass up at this point. So
how funny was it earlier in the season? It was all about Caleb Downs, maybe the best player in the nation, and best player at Ohio State. Reese got off to a scintillating start the first 6 games. Remember, against Texas, he had the big Penn State game halfway through the year, and then a lot of the productivity numbers, the production numbers kind of went down, but people say on tape, again, freak in nature, and was still causing a lot of issues, even if it wasn't in the sack department.
So here's what I would say.
Quick, then we got to go to break.
Go for it, and we'll talk about it.
All right, so we'll come back. We'll finish Chris's thought. Draft night on Off the Leash continues after this. Titans on the clock. Maybe we get an answer by the time we come back on whether they're taking the Buckeye, Carnell Tate.
You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
Man.
All right, what did I say? What did I say the Titans should do?
You said the Titans should go with
Hey,
Tate, and I said no to your face.
The Titans just took Carnell Tate.
Confidently, yes.
So Carnell Tate, the Ohio State receiver, the best receiver in this draft, off the board at 4. I said I don't know why nobody was talking about Tate to the Titans.
Yeah.
Their best receiver was Wan'Dale Robinson.
You're right.
Nice player. Shouldn't be your wide receiver 1. So Tate is off the board. I am devastated now because this is who I wanted for the Browns. However, now it's the Giants are the only thing that stand between the Browns and Arvell Reese, which all of a sudden, if we're talking about the Browns landing the Glenville product, who some consider the best player in the draft, that'll do 2 things. The wow factor goes through the roof, and people will blow a gasket if they take a defensive player.
Can I just say how surprising this is? So we send to our digital department dozens of names.
Yes.
And there was no world where Mark nor I thought that Arvell Reese would fall to 6.
No.
Yeah, that's incredible.
We didn't. We planned for this for literally weeks.
So
I can't tell you how shocking that would be, and we are 1 pick away.
Our outstanding digital manager, Avery Williams, she sent me this list of all these. She's like, I have pictures of all these guys that they might take, and I didn't see Reese on it, and I'm like, yeah, there's no reason to. We might as well put Mendoza on it, right? Because there's no reason he's gonna be there. And right now I got Avery making an Arvell Reese graphic just in case he gets to the Browns.
I mean, Arvell Reese is a top 3 player in this draft.
Okay, so
there was no scenario where he was going to be there for the Browns, and he still might not be. The Giants might take him. But go
the
ahead.
Giants might take him, but
They've been linked to him in the past.
Yes.
If he were able to fall, and people thought obviously he wasn't going to fall, so that's what makes this very, very interesting.
so the Giants just traded Dexter Lawrence to Cincy, all right?
Yeah.
But Arvell Reese doesn't fit the mold of a defensive tackle,
And there isn't
they
a good
have
one.
Thibodeau on the line also. So would they want to bulk up? Would Harbaugh want to bulk up his defensive line by bringing in Reese, or would they trade the pick? And that's what I was going to. That was my suggestion.
That's also what gets fascinating here, because the people I talk to continue to say that if by some miracle Reese would fall to the Browns, they would be looking for a haul, and they might be able to just get it because of somebody his talent, his magnitude, dropping uncharacteristically, considering nobody saw that coming.
Yeah.
But again, would those teams also be trying to maneuver with the Giants and try to get up ahead? Who knows? But now you have kind of your first inflection point, I think, when it comes
Arvell Reese
to
to the
what could
Giants.
happen.
All right, it's gone.
Yep. Arvell
All right,
Reese to the
Reese
Giants.
to the
Okay.
Giants.
All right. Well, there you go. That is
Slide.
that.
It's quote-unquote stops. So.
Back-to-back years, they go edge in the first round. It was Abdul Carter last year, a guy.
Yeah, that's right. I
we
forgot
were
about
hoping
him.
might be there for the Browns at 5.
I
He
remember
wasn't.
that.
I think he went 4th.
That's right.
So Reese is now off the board, and the Cleveland Browns are going on the clock at this point.
All right.
And if we want to
Earlier than we
talk about
thought,
best available, with Reese gone, depending on who you talk to, the best player right now, Mansour Delane, a great corner. Reuben Bain, the edge from Miami.
Sonny
Francis
Styles.
Moenow, Maui Noah,
Noah.
tackle from Miami. Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State. Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State.
Well, with Tate off the board and the Reese thing now settled, 2 back-to-back Buckeyes going, man, this high in the draft, all this Ohio State talent.
We could have 3 Ohio State guys go in a row.
We have that. Can we
they
pull
would
up
have
the
hoisted
Ohio
another
State guys?
banner.
We could actually have 4 go in a row.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I got to wonder what happened against Indiana at the end of the year and what happened against Miami.
Better
at the end of
team,
the year.
man. I mean,
Sorry, I
just-
get a little
yeah.
irritated.
So-
Ryan Day, how much more talent do you
We
need?
do have.
Well,
we
he
have
did.
a-
Hold on.
Let's pull up the
I
Ohio
knew
State.
that was going to come up. They can't win every national championship.
I guess
they
not.
can't.
I guess not.
Come on now.
Nick Saban, he is not.
There we go. So here's the list of we were just talking about them. Let's pull them up here. So these are 5 legitimate possibilities for going in the first round here. We have 4 that could go in the top 12?
12? Yeah, maybe even more. I mean, maybe even less.
We could have 4 in a row now. If Tate
Yeah.
goes, Reese goes. If the Browns take Downs or Styles, it's reasonable that the next one could go after the Browns.
Rappaport moments ago saying Browns and Chiefs have been in deep talks on a trade to send KC up to the number 6 overall pick, Cleveland back to 9.
Schefter
Official,
reporting now.
Yeah. So it is
Schefter
official.
reporting Browns sending 6 to the Chiefs.
Chiefs,
You
there
said
you
it's
go.
back to 9.
Yeah,
That's
back
what
to
you got
9.
over there.
Yeah.
Well, again,
confirmed.
that's a long. Remember, we had talked about the Dallas Cowboys. To 9 is even more palatable, I think, for the Browns because the type of value you could get and a player that you might have wanted anyway at 6, you could get at 9 and also add value in this draft. I think that could prove to be a very viable option, and I think Browns fans should be okay with it unless you guys were going nuts over some of the players that we had talked about.
I think the only issue I would have is at this point they could take the best offensive lineman here.
Yeah.
That would be my only argument. But to your argument and to your point, this may be a good thing trading down only 3 spots.
You know what?
And some of those teams in the middle don't need offensive linemen.
Right.
And also, I can't find anyone that says there's an offensive lineman that's a top 6 player in this draft.
Yeah.
The official trade, Browns trade pick 6. They then get back 9, 74, and 148.
Oh, wow.
That
Okay.
brings the Browns' number of picks total to 11.
So
Wow.
Kansas City moves up 3 spots, and they do not give up their second.
They do not. That is a
That's
very
good value for that.
Yeah,
That's
that is
a very
very
good
good
value.
value.
This draft, people said throw out the trade charts
Yeah.
for this draft because the talent wasn't necessarily there to warrant anything crazy that we might have seen in previous drafts.
So then, let's talk about then the potential for the Browns if they would want to trade back up again in the first round.
Hold up. We're going to take a break because I got to get him in.
Yeah.
When we come back, what he
Gotta pay
said
the bills.
is this just got very interesting. The
Man.
Browns moving out of 6. They drop to 9. Kansas City jumps up. Jeff Slauson's got things to stay. Stick around.
You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
All right, first round underway. Browns already made a trade. The Browns made the first trade of the night. They move back to 9. Kansas City picks up the 6th. The Browns in exchange get a 3rd and a 5th round choice to drop back 3 slots. And somebody's going to look at that and be like, how do you only get that much? That tells you the Browns board is flat. They got like 5 guys they see it's all the same. They're just going to take whatever they can get extra, move back a little bit to get the same value. Slaw, you were on a point before we had to shut you down.
Yeah, so now this also brings up a question of if it is cheaper to move up than a standard draft. Mark and I had talked about this a little bit before the draft. The consensus was, in order for the Browns to move up back into round 1, if they wanted a 3rd first-round pick, because you want to get that 5th-year option, it would at least cost you 39, obviously, 70, and 107 was kind of what we thought it would be, which is basically a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 4th. To bump up, you would get some kickbacks, but that's around the idea. It doesn't seem like that is nearly going to be it anymore. it seems like to move up from 39 to 32, you could very much so give maybe a fifth, maybe a fourth, and a swap. I mean, if that's what they're giving right now to move up 3 spots, when historically we have seen a second involved in that, that should be very promising potentially for teams that want to move up into that 32nd spot, which my only certainty in this draft is I feel like the Seahawks are going to trade it. They only have 5 draft picks in this whole draft. That's the time.
And you just picked up the extra third. You could flip that
use that
into
one. Fine.
whatever you want. So, and it's already out there. I mean, the TV feed is way behind. The TV feeds just have Arvell Reese right now being selected by the Giants. We already know Mansour Delane, right, is the guy at 6.
Just for correction, the NFL corrected the pick. It's 148, not 141.
148.
974 and 148
for the Browns.
This is according to the usual suspects on. I still call it Twitter.
That is what, I think that's what we were reporting. I just want to be make sure we're clear.
Is that it is Mansour Delane at 6? That's who reported that? Shefty?
It was one of them.
One of
Let
those
me see
guys.
here.
All right. Which would mean the Browns are still about 3 picks away, and
I'm thinking it's going to be offensive line.
it kind of feels like if it's not Malachi Lemon, it's an offensive lineman. It feels like offensive line.
I think that's where they're going to go. The question is, you have guys that are projects. You got guys that can play right tackle, but not necessarily left tackle.
Yeah.
And so how does that
Sharp.
figure into the calculus on making a move? Like, I think they're where they want to be. I think they're going to get potentially the offensive line they were probably the lineman they were going to take anyway at number 6. So I think for them, it's fortuitous anyway. That wide receiver stuff might have just been for the second consecutive year. Remember last year, Travis Hunter, the unicorn, I think for the second straight year, they might have leaked out a lot of talk about the wide receivers just to put them in position. They know in the middle of this draft, it is going to go heavy offensive linemen, and the absolute last thing the Browns could do is find themselves in a spot where there's a run on offensive linemen and they're on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys, you mentioned them as projects. People talk about, Fano, maybe the top tackle in the draft, and there's a lot of people that think he's a right tackle in the NFL, maybe a guard. Now, Todd Monkin said, I think it was at the owners' meetings, he had the lunch with the reporters and stuff, he thought if you could play right, you could also play left. He felt pretty good about that. This is a live look in at Public Hall. This is the Browns draft party, and this is one of these. The folks are just waiting to explode, right? They're just waiting for something to have as a Shador jersey, because those are going to be around because it's like the highest selling. Is it still the highest selling jersey? It's got to be way up there.
Probably up there. Well, we all remember the feature film draft day when the Browns traded their pick in that and everyone got mad. So, people I feel like don't get that excited when they have a draft where also, people shouldn't be surprised. This draft seemed to be tackle, and it seemed to be wide receiver, and it seemed to be potentially in that order. So the people for the beginning of it, hopefully they're not that shocked with the trade back, knowing that it was going to be an offensive tackle there or potentially an offensive tackle now.
I heard a lot of speculation that, is it all along? Is Caden Proctor? He was one of the guys we talked about early. But then you saw what Nick Saban, the guy who recruited him, had said about him not being a self-starter. There were rumors that he was up to 390, at one point. I think at the Combine he ended up around 345. But, hey, we've had experience with that before. DeJuan Jones, who is looking ever slimming lately, I have to say. He's gotten with a very exceptional trainer, apparently. He's looking good. But all I'm saying is, it's going to be interesting after all that stuff just got said by his former coach.
Yeah.
Our Browns fans going to be ecstatic to take a guy who's not necessarily a self-starter.
Let's pull up we have a top 5 offensive tackles here.
I was about to say, let's go to the list of best tackles.
Let's go to the tape.
Called it.
So this is compiled. Basically what I did is I just did all of the large or the bigger people that prognosticate. This is the combination of all of that, okay?
This is like ESPN,
ESPN,
Daniel
Yahoo,
Jeremiah, those kind of guys.
McShay, all these guys, right? And I basically put it in, I did my own formula, and this is what it came out to. So this is the quote-unquote top 5. Blake Miller arguably could have been in there. He's the offensive tackle from Clemson here. Each one of them has a ding on them. And the one ding you don't want to hear is short arms. Maui Goa, is that what we're saying his name?
No, it's Mawanoa.
Mawanoa, excuse me. He has short arms. That's not what you want to hear. Fano also has short arms. Not what you want to hear. Fano, excuse me. I'm nailing these ones right now. 2 out of your 5 have shorter arms.
Wow.
That's not preferred. This is a very weird class of offensive tackle where some of the guys are fantastic. Some of the guys make a lot of sense. Others really don't. You have Freeling, who's 6'7". Some people are saying that he's too tall because of how he's 6'7", and that means that his center of gravity is off. So a lot of these guys you're going to find very strange, very weird problems with. But I think Lima's point The most obvious and glaring issue is with Proctor. The most obvious and glaring issue is a guy who committed to Iowa twice and then decided he was going to go to Alabama. This is a guy that his teammates, according to Saban, not really a guy's guy for that.
Yeah.
Character issues.
Right. All these guys have some sort of issues. He's the only one that part of his tape and part of his evaluation was, not the greatest guy to have in the locker room. So you don't want that.
Somebody wondering why? Who cares if you have short arms?
Right.
They
Or if you're
turn on
6'7".
the tape. If he can play football, this is what it
Yeah.
comes down to. Especially at tackle. At tackle, you are blocking one of the premier positions in football, which is edge. And so often with edge players, you hear about their wingspan, like it's basketball, right? Long arms. Well, just think of like the cartoons you'd see, where the dude with the longer arm sticks it out on the other dude, right? And the dude is just like squatting and he can't reach him and he can't do anything. If the edge can extend and push out and the tackle can't really do much with his arms, it just makes it hard. There's ways to compensate for that, but it's something you have to overcome. It can be a ding. It doesn't mean you can't be good.
Yeah.
It just means it's an extra. You'd rather him not have that.
What good is that going to do if you're trying to block somebody like Miles Garrett?
That's the question.
Nobody can block
That's
Miles
right.
Garrett.
That's right. It doesn't matter if you got go-go gadget arms.
Right,
at that
exactly.
point.
It
But
doesn't
listen,
matter.
Will Campbell, that was the big debate last year. Now, actually, I think he had a nice year.
Yeah.
Got exposed in the playoffs because in the playoffs you're going up against preeminent pass rushers. I did see there's one Commanders reporter that says Sonny Styles is going to be the pick for the Washington Commanders. So
I like that.
7.
we
I
will
like that.
see if that ends up
It would
becoming.
be 3 of 4 Buckeyes at that
Sonny
point.
Styles. So
I'm also
Caleb
seeing
Downs.
that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Style. You're getting
I'm also seeing Styles.
style. So the outstanding linebacker from Ohio State appears to be on his way to the nation's capital. And it would be
Reports-
Tate at 4, Reese at 5, and then coming back with another Buckeye at 7 with Styles if that holds. And Caleb Downs, I'll tell you what, we got to, you know what, we'll talk about Downs in a minute. I want to make sure we don't get too far ahead of ourselves here on the clock. The Buckeye safety looks like the next elite NFL safety. We'll talk about it after this. Draft night continues. Off the Leash version.
You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
We are still waiting on the Browns to pick. They moved back from 6 to 9. And Sonny Styles, the pick from Washington, went at 7. The Ohio State linebacker off the board. New Orleans on the clock. And it sounds like we know who that is as well, right?
Yeah, that is Jordan Tyson, wide receiver out of Arizona State. The knock on him has consistently been he cannot stay healthy.
Yep.
I'll just pull up the stats really quickly for those that are unfamiliar. He has missed over the last multiple seasons, at least due to injury. 2023, the entire season due to a knee injury. He's then had knee, collarbone, and hamstring issues that have made him miss multiple games every single season. That is a legitimate problem. When he's good, he is great. Legitimately great.
Yeah.
He now goes to New Orleans that can't keep Chris Olave on the field.
This is true.
Somebody explain that to me.
I don't know. Tyler Shuck's going to be a very happy guy.
Yeah, temporarily.
He's got when they're healthy, he's got some dudes. A lot of people had thought Kansas City was intrigued by Tyson. Obviously, they went defense with Delane, but yeah, he is an intriguing prospect. A lot of people thought New York wanted him at 10 with the pick they just got from Cincinnati. He obviously will not be there. And a little bit of a sad story here in Cleveland, as we cannot pair the Tyson brothers. One a Cavalier, one a Cleveland Brown. It's going to be one a Cavalier, one to the Saints. And no, we're not trading our guy to the Pelicans.
No, we're not.
Just to make that happen.
Yeah,
not
keep him
going
around.
to happen.
Too good.
Not going to happen.
This also shows me, at least the trade back too.
By
You
the
have to
way-
imagine that Tate was one of the guys they would have wanted. Once he left, it was kind of like whatever.
Yeah, that's where I was going. By the way, when the Saints pick is in, that means the Browns are on the clock unless they move it back. And yes, that's, last year they had that trade worked out with Jacksonville before the draft. But they said, we're not going to execute this because we just want to make sure Tennessee takes Cam Ward. If he's there, we do want to take him. Ward went to Tennessee as expected. The Browns transacted the trade with Jacksonville. This is one of these, I've got to imagine, they either had Tate or Reese or maybe both and said, you know what? If one of these guys are here, we're going to take them. If they're not, that's when we're going to move back and bang. Because when did we find out about that trade? We found out about that trade when they were on the clock, not beforehand. And so a lot of us are guessing it's going to be offensive line here.
That
We'll
seems
see.
to have been a situation where the Chiefs wanted to jump over the Commanders to get a corner, and so that's how that all started. It didn't seem like there was anything else in that.
That's the way a lot of times that goes. Is
The cookie
somebody needs
crumbles.
this, let's get ahead of them. We can move a third and a fifth and go ahead and do it. We are nearing the end here of our first hour. We got a little bit of time. And the Saints pick is in.
Okay.
Now we know who it is, but the league just kind of bogs all this down because the Browns should be on the clock right now.
Well, remember, it's interesting. They made the move to 8 minutes between the picks.
I
So
know.
this is breakneck speed. If anybody remembers those Saturdays where you just sat back.
There is
All day.
15 minutes?
15
Yeah.
minutes. And, of course, the Vikings, that wasn't even enough time
Yeah, they
to make
missed
a
it
pick.
2 years in a row.
They
Yeah.
still missed out on 15 minutes. So you're down to 8. So teams, obviously, they've got to speed up every single conversation that they have. So you imagine that the Browns obviously are, potentially fielding calls because Caleb Downs, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about him when we got a second here.
Well, is that somebody, is it worth it to go away from the need, at offensive line and
DPA.
wide receiver to take Caleb Downs, who I said earlier in the year, we came into the season and people said he's the best player in college football. I heard a number of national guys say that, and they love the way that he was going to be able to make that transition to the NFL. You just saw that type of eye for the ball, nose for the ball throughout the entire season. Game 1, end of the season, he was there and he was steady and
Browns picks
consistent.
him.
Browns pick
So no
is
trade.
in.
It is. They took an offensive tackle.
All right.
What do you got?
It's Fano or Fano?
Fano.
Spencer Fano.
Spencer Fano
Utah.
from Utah. All right,
Spencer
so that's
Fano
the
from
pick.
Utah, offensive tackle, is the choice for the Cleveland Browns. So as we all correctly surmised then, it was going to be an offensive tackle. They do what everybody said they were going to do, which is take an offensive tackle with that first pick, and then we all guess it's going to be a wide receiver. Yeah, that's the man right there.
Love the hair.
He's a big boy. You want to get a big boy in the offensive line. 6'5", 311. Steven, I'm going to send you some pros and cons for him.
Go for it.
That we can get up there that I have put together here.
You hear a lot about the arms again.
Yeah.
This guy, though, he just demolished people for Utah, and he played left for them.
6'6", 311.
Some people wonder, is he a better right tackle
They
than
list him
left
as
tackle?
6'6". That's funny.
Some people wonder if he's a better guard than a tackle. But they'll sort this out.
6'6",
And
311.
I'll tell you what, I've said it a few times. I didn't know if they had to get a tackle because they do have DeJuan Jones. He's hurt. But now, if you're in a position, say Fano is your left and Titus Howard's your right, if DeJuan Jones is your swing tackle, that's a luxury.
Yeah.
Right? A swing tackle, a good one. Is
For about 8
versatility.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, but if he's your swing tackle, how
Speaking
often do you
into
need him?
existence.
No, it's absolutely right. Unfortunately
Yeah.
for the kid, he burst onto the scene. Everybody remembers what he did to T.J. Watt right off the bat, and we're like, all right, we get used to
Yeah.
this. Unfortunately, had 3 straight years where he
Yep.
ends the season with season-ending injuries. So you're right, though. I get what you're saying. I mean, a little more depth there with everything they've done in free agency to this point. He has been considered, Fano, a higher floor player. Maybe doesn't project as a potential Hall of Famer or whatever, but that's the fun of the draft. We do that all day, every day, and we look silly doing it time and time again.
I love the flexibility this gives them. We talked about what that does. Say Fano's left and Titus Howard's right, and now DeJuan Jones is your swing tackle. But now you also have the guards, and you know Jenkins, both Jenkins actually, and Zion Johnson. You're still waiting on Batonio. If you do get Batonio back,
yeah, that hasn't happened
that
yet.
means
Yeah.
Jenkins from Green Bay, not the Jenkins that they retained. He then moves to center. You've already got a lot of fluidity. You've got a lot of flexibility. You've got some depth now. We still don't know about Batonio, I understand, but that is part of the conversation. And a position of need can quickly become a position of depth for the Browns.
Just to make Browns fans happy, Underdog, they have 2 of their creators have taken over their account. Cleveland, by drafting Spencer Fano, you just landed the best offensive player in the draft, not named Fernando Mendoza. That's a big deal. Here we go. Perfect. Yeah. So pros and cons here. Pros, great recovery, great zone blocking. This is a guy where, if his first step isn't great, he's going to pick up for it in the end. The cons, as I've talked about, I love talking about the fact that,
T-Rex arms? T-Rex arms?
It does matter. It does matter. And then on his tape, showed up multiple times that if anybody puts a move on him, whether it's a spin move or something like that, it gets rough for him. And that ultimately, Chris, plays into the fact because of the tiny arm thing.
Yeah, it lists him as the second fastest 40-yard dash out of all offensive linemen, a 4.91. So, quick feet, as you mentioned. Yeah,
that's great.
That is great.
When he's got to chase guys after
Yes,
interceptions,
absolutely.
you're going to see him blazing down the field. But it just speaks to the athleticism, and you love to see that. The way the NFL has gone, those big lumbering guys that don't move well, that's on the way out. That's been out for a while. They like
Archaic.
more athletic guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm reading right here. The Browns were going to take the Utah offensive tackle at 6.
Which is what I would tell reporters too, if I was able to trade down.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. It honestly does make sense. You know, they had a good idea. Remember, when you're doing the draft, you're not just wagering, who might be available at certain times. You also have to deal with every other team's strengths and weaknesses, what they're looking for, and that's a big part of this, knowing the board matrix for everybody else involved.
Multiple people are reporting that, but you're right. That is definitely we were going to take him anyways, and clearly. So that's
we would have taken him at number 1
so
if we were sitting there.
This is the Browns draft party right now. Remember, TV is drastically behind where we are right now. So they are currently still on the Saints pick, which they've got the Saints pick, then the Chiefs pick, then the Browns pick there. So they have not yet seen officially the Browns pick. It's going to be a couple of minutes until that's officially announced because, again, the Saints pick was just announced here. I do believe we have to take a break in a couple of seconds here. Yep. Okay. So we are going to take a quick break. Mark Schwab is his seat's empty. He's going to make an appearance on TV. So when we come back, we'll have more. Hopefully, the official announcement for the pick.
You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Draft Night Special. Jeff Slauson, Anthony Lima, Chris Fry breaking down the latest in here. Mark Schwab will be back in his seat after he makes an appearance over on 19 News, which is currently airing over on Cleveland's 43 if you want to see that. Now, the Browns pick is officially in. We are waiting on them to officially announce it. The teams went from 10 minutes to 8 minutes for the pick. That doesn't mean that the TV production is going any faster. So at any point, we are actually about 1 to 2 picks ahead of everybody right now. So we do know that the Cleveland Browns have taken Fano, Spencer Fano out of Utah. Big old boy. You want him on the offensive line, you got him on the offensive line. That is going to be their choice. We also know that another offensive tackle then went next in the Giants' second first-round pick that they have here. That is going to be Francis Maui Noah from Miami. That means 2 players are dropping right now. Players that we all, at least in this room, are fairly high on. That is going to be Caleb Downs, and Ruben Bain is falling in this aspect too here. The Caleb Downs thing is weird.
I mean, he was considered, as we mentioned earlier, the best player in football. Like, he is literally he was the quarterback of Ohio State's defense. A nose for the ball, very instinctive. A lot of people thought he was going to be a top 5 pick, and the drop, it's very puzzling, Anthony, on why he's dropping. But that's going to be good news for a team that really needs secondary help.
Yeah, look, the one thing about the safety position, we talk about non-premium positions, not quarterbacks, not offensive linemen, not wide receiver, not pass rusher. Those non-premium positions, it can be tough depending on a team's need. And look, talent-wise, you're right. He was always, the entire season, up there in the top 2, 3, 4 that they talked about all year. But NFL teams and safety, they tend to be allergic to them at the top of these drafts. And so still an amazing talent. Like, I couldn't find anybody who didn't think he would be a sensational NFL football player. But it's all about opportunity cost and having to pass up on those premium positions to go after what is considered typically a luxury at safety. That's the difference. That's why Caleb Downs is still on the board.
We go live now to the Browns draft room.
Nice.
And that is what I would call, in my expert opinion, a subdued reaction.
Well, you're at a watch party.
Mark's back. What were they expecting, though?
I mean, listen, this is you said it earlier. Taking a tackle is like drafting a comfortable pair of shoes.
Yeah.
You need them. They're reliable, but nobody's like, yeah, the New Balance dad shoes.
I like that guy getting his Browns hat, and he's like, I refuse to cheer for an offensive tackle.
Oh, my gosh.
You draft a tackle, I am not getting happy.
Well, imagine, I've been to plenty of watch parties over the years, and it's not sexy when you're in need of an offensive lineman. And I think even if everybody thought that would be the prudent move to take offensive line, if you're at a watch party, you're a little liquored up, I think you're ready to have a very lengthy night. Maybe you took off work the next day.
Probably so.
In the back of your mind, you're thinking, let me get one of those receivers for our quarterbacks, help them out. Let me get a weapon. And obviously the offensive linemen, because we know offensive linemen, unless they're Joe Thomas, they struggle mightily that rookie year, most of them. And a lot of them struggle, even the good ones, struggle for the first half of the season. And so that's the tough spot. It's hard to say, hey, on day one, we've got that tackle of the future that's going to come in ready to go. Oftentimes, those guys struggle big time. We talked about, New England's left tackle last year.
Yeah, Will Campbell.
The Will Campbell experience. He actually was decent throughout the regular season. It was when the playoffs happened that it caught up to him.
And in fairness, he got hurt, too.
Yeah,
I mean, Will Campbell was hurt.
That's a big part of it.
It's a long season. He got hurt.
Yeah.
All right, so
can we just ask, do we like the pick?
I like it. Yes, I think, once again, it filled a need. It's not sexy, but fans and the media complained all last year about how the linemen were falling left and right. They had no protection for whether it's Dylan Gabriel or Shadur Sanders. And now in the offseason, they build up their offensive line, and then they draft the top offensive line prospect. So, yeah, there's no celebration, but I'm a long-term thinker, and I'm thinking, hey, you want to build depth for this position because you want to protect your quarterback, you want to get your stud running back, open those holes up so this offense can be productive. 16 points a game last year? That's what I mentioned. So
Didn't even seem like that many.
It didn't, and in order to score more points, it starts on the offensive line. So I love the pick.
I like it. I mean, I can't find anyone that says he's a bad player or
Right.
bad
No,
prospect.
no.
Of course, there's
Absolutely.
questions about just about everyone.
Yeah.
And I really like, and I kind of touched on this before I left to go hit the news thing. This really now addresses the depth, right? Because now DeJuan Jones goes to the bench, and he gives you a real solid swing tackle. And what they did with the guards, Elton Jenkins has been into the Pro Bowl, and he could be a guard for the Browns. He could be the center for the Browns. And we're still waiting on Batonio, but they have so many options now and fluidity. Titus Howard can play right tackle or guard. Fano can play tackle or guard. Jenkins can play guard or center. Batonio, if you had to, could play left tackle or guard. So they've addressed it with legitimate players, and all these guys seem to have some flexibility in where they can go.
Yeah, Jenkins broke his leg in November, so something we haven't heard a lot about that. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he's going to be ready to go once the season starts. But that was a formidable signing. I mean, that was huge for them.
Caleb Downs 11th to the Cowboys.
Who went 10th?
Does that mean that they traded up?
Who went
It does.
10th?
Maui Noah went 10th.
Oh, Maui Noah goes 10th.
Yes.
So, all right, so the Browns
there you go.
started the run on tackles.
So the Dolphins traded
They flipped
back
with that.
one pick
Yes.
to the Cowboys. The Cowboys gave him 12, 177, and 180 to move up one single spot.
Wow.
And they get Caleb
And they
Downs.
get Caleb Downs.
Wow.
There you go.
All right, so I also, yes, with the Browns taking Fano, they had their choice of every tackle on the board, and it tells you they really love that guy. Down to the Cowboys.
Consistency and versatility. You just mentioned all of the players who are switchables, and that's what they need, right? They don't need one guy that's on one set position. If you can put a guy on at guard or center, that's useful for the Browns. And of course, you got to wait on Batonio. That's the magic key right there.
All right, I just got a text from Leah Doherty. She's at Browns World headquarters in Berea. She said Todd Monkin coming now to the podium there. So I would imagine we will have thoughts of the Browns head coach soon. He had talked about at the coach's lunch, I think I referenced this, how he felt, if you could play right tackle, you can probably play left tackle. And that tells us that lends to Fano being their left tackle, along with it just makes sense because Titus Howard, we don't have him playing left tackle anywhere. So I'm anxious to hear what he has to say. And now we talk about this, and now we really start to watch as the Browns sit there at 24.
Okay.
Who will be there for them? I want to know, how far does Lemon fall? A guy who was pretty universally thought of as the second best receiver in this draft. Because Jordan Tyson was, some people had him as 2, I guess. I shouldn't say universal. But some people had Tyson pretty far down there because of the injuries.
Well, Concepcion, I've heard that the Browns were in love with him also.
I like him a lot.
Yeah.
Casey Concepcion, slot machine.
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M.
And he was quick. He's quick. He's a burner.
Release. I've heard it talked about his release package.
Yes.
I love the language we get into with some of these things. The footwork and things he can do.
No, he gets my favorite designation.
Which is?
Twitchy.
Twitchy.
Oh!
Twitchy.
That is my favorite receiver designation
Twitchy.
in history.
It's going to be, right?
Is when it's great.
That's nice.
I love when people say that, because that means
Twitchy.
terrible things in 99% of the meetings. But when you call a wide receiver twitchy, they're like, that's my guy.
That's a good nickname.
That's my guy. I really like Concepcion. And that's a guy where, you probably wouldn't even have to reach that much. I know for that pick there, and Lima, you talked about this a little bit, what Vegas was thinking there. Concepcion and Cooper are the two favorites to go at that pick.
Well, Cooper, obviously, at Indiana this year, just made every clutch catch, the Penn State catch, highlighting an incredible fourth quarter late drive when Indiana's undefeated season was on the line. And that dude made a special catch.
I'm not laughing at you. The camera's just still on me. And
You just nod. Say yes, Lima, yes. But it was.
Testify.
He did it. The Penn State one is the one everybody remembers, but he did it all season long.
Yeah.
Anytime they needed a key catch, he was able to do it.
All right, I want to talk about 3 names, and you just talked about one of them is Cooper. Because the Browns pick at 24. Let's say for the purposes of this conversation, they don't move up. Nobody expects Lemon to be there at 24.
No.
The 3 names you routinely hear at 24 are Cooper, are Concepcion, and Denzel Boston, the big receiver out of Washington.
Love Denzel Boston.
There's a real possibility one of those guys is a Cleveland Brown.
I agree.
think.
I agree.
We got pull up the wide receiver list.
Pull it up. You got it? Yeah, of course. We got graphics, we got people, we got everything.
I like Lima's assessment of Cooper, and here's his clutch ability at Indiana. He was their big play guy. And sometimes, and looking back on college players, and I watch a lot of college football, and you see those guys, those top guys make big plays in college, most of them go and do the same thing. It translates for most of them to the pros. And I think Omar Cooper is that type of guy. He's that type of guy. He has that big playability. He's not afraid of the moment. And I think if you draft a guy like that, you've got championship pedigree, you've got big playability. He's not afraid of the moment. I think if he's there, even though they like Concepcion, I want a guy who's a winner. And this is something the Browns haven't done in a while. You want to bring guys who have won, who understands what it takes to win, who've won championships. It's the NFL, yes, but they know how to win. Losing is not an option.
Losing is a disease.
It is a disease, and Cooper knows about that.
Yeah, it is a disease that infects the Browns.
Yeah.
But those are really the other three names at receiver. Some people will say Chris Brazzell. I don't want Chris Brazzell. I don't want Chris Brazzell. Period. I don't trust Tennessee receivers.
He was good at Tennessee, but he didn't blow me away.
And Tennessee receivers, there's something about that offense there and the way they use them. They just don't translate.
It's a gimmicky offense. I mean, Josh Heupel, it's a hurry up, no huddle, and they get the ball out quickly, but they don't run like a normal pro style.
Right.
So yeah, he didn't impress me.
So I don't want Brazzell. I'm hoping it's Concepcion, Boston, or Cooper there at 24. KC is my favorite. I wonder if Lemon starts to drop a long way.
That's what I was
Do the Browns then get a little aggressive?
Yeah, because they obviously have the ammo to do it. The Boston one is interesting because he is mammoth in size.
He's so different than the other.
Has some issues getting open right off the rip on the line of scrimmage. You know, he's not the fastest. He's not a burner. He's just one of those that I think they think he could be reliable in contested catch situations, third down, and be able to do that. Not going to be a yards after the catch guy at all.
Looking at his stats this year with Washington in big games, you're talking about one notably against Ohio State, 3 catches, 26 yards. You want your best players to step up against the best teams, and he didn't do that. Against Oregon, 4 catches, 25 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, but he wasn't a difference maker in that game.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
The Rams are drafting Ty Simpson with the 13th pick.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
That would be a bombshell.
Now,
that's according to Jay Glazer.
it's the Glaze.
Wow.
So, I mean, the Rams are one of those teams.
Oh, my goodness.
The Rams are one of those teams that were connected to him early.
Well, hold on. So Jeff, I'm just curious. Why are you so? Is it because Simpson is being drafted so high, or is he going to the Rams?
I think it's both in that situation. You have Ty Simpson, who is a guy that you said on a podcast last week you thought he was a 4th rounder.
Yeah.
But that's how polarizing he is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're wrong or you're right. That's how polarizing this guy is. They just re-signed Matt Stafford, who won an MVP to a contract. I understand he's probably not going to fill it.
Yeah,
I understand. He's getting old. But still, and apparently, according to Jay Glazer, they informed Stafford of this decision. You now have a project at 13 for a team that's fighting for championships. So instead of taking the player that you potentially could say, okay, he can help us win right now, you take the guy that is guaranteed to sit behind the reigning MVP for, 2 years?
You know what?
I can see a Jordan Love situation like Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, but that doesn't always work.
It's working for Green Bay, though.
I think it can. Here's where I'm going with this.
All right.
I was about to mention Jordan Love, who went to Tennessee or Green Bay, and he sat for like 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
There are, and I'm not a big fan of Simpson. His track record, and we'll get into that here soon, Slaw, because you and I put some work in on that. But for a guy to come in, a first-round pick, who sits for like a year, and in his case, it'll probably be 2.
Yeah.
Which this completely contrasts the other info we have on Simpson. The guys that do that and bust. That is rare. There are not many that sit. Like, I remember Paxton Lynch, who never played. I don't know what happened to that dude. But there are not many guys that get picked in the first round, sit for a year, and in his case, it'll probably be 2. Then when they get the job, they stink. That's just rare when you attach it to first-round draft capital. I'm not saying there's some 4th-round bum that sat for 3 years and he wasn't any. First-round draft capital, sit the bench for a year or 2. There's not many that flop, which completely contrasts the track record for guys with 15 starts or fewer, which is what Simpson also has, they all stink other than Cam Newton.
Yeah, it's the one thing that I know we talked a ton about it in the lead up. I didn't like his size either, and I didn't care necessarily that he was horrible in the playoff game against Indiana or anything like that. He had been dealing with some health issues in general just because of that. So I didn't put the world of that, make the biggest deal in the world on that. But I will say, there are going to be more and more guys, believe it or not, with the new transfer. Every chance you get, if you don't play and you've got another coach and an NIL deal, you'll go somewhere else. You're going to have more and more guys that actually have less starts.
Yeah.
So as an NFL's a league, we have to consider that. And instead of just eliminating them from contention every single time because they don't have the games under their belt, maybe do something like this, where Matt Stafford's going to be the starter this year. Maybe it's just one more year, but knowing that you're going in there, save an injury, and you can truly develop, as opposed to what the Browns have done year in and year out, which is throw guys to the wolves, ready or not, here we come. Now, there are a few guys in this league that can do it. I gave Baker Mayfield all the credit in the world for being able to do that in short order, very early on in his career. But, the league kind of vacillates back and forth, and it looks like they want to give guys more and more time now to get ready.
All right, we got to continue this conversation, but we got to squeeze in a break first.
Oh, yeah.
Draft night off the leash continues after this. Much to discuss.
You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
All right, we continue as a quarterback just went off the board. I want to direct back, though, through a moment to the Browns and their decision. Obviously, they trade back. They get Fano. We want to know what the folks have to think. Cleveland19.com/vote. You can chime in. Do you agree with the Browns' decision doing what they did with their first-round pick, getting
Hopefully you would have been
Spencer
more
Fano.
excited than the folks at the draft party.
The draft party looked a little subdued.
Yeah.
All right, hold on. So Downs went to Dallas. It is Caden Proctor, the offensive tackle from Alabama. He goes to Miami. So the Browns start the run on tackles because it's 3 of 4 then.
Yeah.
It's Fano, it's Maui Noah, then Downs, and then Proctor. And then as we started to discuss before the break, it sounds like the Rams are going with Ty Simpson.
Yes.
All right, so the thing on him, 15 career starts. The last guy that had 15 career starts or fewer and was any good in the NFL, 15 starts in college, was Cam Newton.
He's pretty good.
There is no way Ty Simpson is Cam Newton.
Yeah, we want to say that's the outlier. In this
That's the outlier. And then if you want to keep going further back, Mark Sanchez is the next best guy?
Let me just give the guys that we did the research on here, okay? You have Mitch Trubisky, Cam Newton, Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance, Dwayne Haskins, and Mark Sanchez. Those are the names. And Ty Simpson.
And now Ty Simpson. And the only one of them that's any good is really Cam. I went back to 1996, which would be 30 years of drafts.
Right.
1996. I couldn't really find anyone other than Newton that you would clearly say was good. This doesn't mean I saw somebody at 1995 and just didn't want to include. No, I just got bored. I'd gone through 30 drafts. I was just done. I'm done. I'm just going to shut it down. We'll call it 30 years. So it's now, and again, you piggyback that with what I said going to the break. Rarely when guys get picked in the first round and get time to sit, they almost never bust. So I'm dying to see how this turns out. Think about the Rams. We talk about, they got Matt Stafford and they got the contract. Jimmy Garoppolo has been their backup for a long time.
True.
He has talked recently as he might retire. Now, he hasn't made that decision. But if you're the Rams and you could get Jimmy G back, and now you thoroughly have Simpson in mothballs for a year, maybe two, and they got
Maybe
Stetson
longer.
Bennett there too. Now he is, bubble wrapped, and you can just really let them develop.
So Matt Stafford just turned 38 in February. So you're thinking with the trend of quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, these quarterbacks, now we've got better technology to keep these guys upright for over 40. You think maybe Matt Stafford has maybe 3 years left?
So they just re-signed him, for another 2, right?
It's not better technology, by the way. It's just better rules.
Yeah,
You're
it's
foul
just
if you
different.
sneeze on him.
But to Chris's point, so they re-signed him to 2. They got 2 more years on him, right? He just won an MVP. They almost went to the Super Bowl. Probably should have gone to the Super Bowl. So, yeah, you assume that minimum Ty Simpson's going to sit for 2 years.
Right.
Can I posit the question of, and the reason why I said, oh my gosh, what happens if Stafford is good enough after 2 years? Then you run into a situation where you're forcing a guy out that could be winning, and it does. I mean, the first Jordan Love year was fine, but a lot of people questioned it. Obviously, it worked out well for them. There's always that issue.
That was the Garoppolo situation in New England, right?
Exactly. They gave up on him before they could find out what he was.
But as always, they look at quarterbacks as assets eternally. This is a little bit different because of so few starts, over there in a big situation. So it's a perfect spot for him. I mean, this couldn't have gotten any better. You're a first-round pick, you get first-round money, and you don't have to do anything. I mean, I don't think a Johnny Manziel could handle that situation, but I think this is a kid, good character, and certainly could do that. I just question, is he talented enough? Is he going to be somebody that is good enough? We always thought it was interesting just in general in this draft, considering all the quarterbacks that are going to be in the draft next year when Dante Moore goes back and has another year to get ready. Obviously, Arch, Julian Sayin, the list goes on.
By the way, Moore would have been one of these sub-15 star guys.
I think Dante Moore would have gone ahead of Ty Simpson.
I agree. I'm just going to say real quick, I'm going to stop complaining about it because Hayden Winks brings up a great point. We're all stuck on Ty Simpson. On one hand, nobody wanted him. On the other hand, are we supposed to say we know QB play better than Sean McVay? I don't. So, I'm going to stop saying
well,
that.
that's where the Rams get the benefit of the doubt. They got the title. They can sit the kid. McVay's got the resume. We're going to talk about it, but they get to insulate him and sit him on the bench for 1 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So
the Browns, I think they've got to be thinking big time moving up. You can't just sit, I don't think, at 24 and hope that the wide receiver you have number 1 on your board in terms of best receiver remaining. I don't think you can just sit there. I think you've got to move. You've got the ammo to do it. There had been talk that Tampa Bay might be willing to wheel and deal there at 15? So
15, yep.
They've got the ammo. So I would not be shocked at all. It's just the question is, do they want Lemon? Do they want Cooper?
And to your point,
who is the guy?
Right, because Lima, what happens if the run starts? Yeah. They started the offensive tackle run. What if you're on the wrong end of that?
Yeah. And that's what you want to avoid throughout. That was the one thing, but I think just in getting a little extra value, being able to move down to number 9 to get the best offensive lineman on your board, obviously, I think that would end up being, I don't know if I want to call it a coup in this draft, because you did have 2 first-round picks, and this draft wasn't exactly the best draft ever. But that is what I think we're focusing on now is the trade up.
We can look at some of these. We got to go to break here in a minute because we're a little behind. But we can start to look at this board a little bit. With the Rams at 13 and Simpson off the board, how many of these teams in the next few need receiver? Baltimore does not, but they could.
Nope.
What do we got?
1-1 in our college career. I won one today and I lost the last one.
Fano.
So I'm really excited.
Spencer, what do you make of stepping into a role that was filled by Hall of Famer Joe Thomas for so many years? What do you know about Joe? And are you looking forward to sort of maybe being mentored by him and coached up by him a little bit?
Yes. I mean, this is pretty starstruck to hear another meeting. Whenever anyone asks me who here is tackle ball fighter, they say Joe Thomas. I know the good amount about him. So 10 years. Or he did look at that. I did look at that. So I'm able to learn from that. And not only 10 years when I was looking at that, 10 years what he did. I'm really, really grateful and excited to be able to learn from him.
Murph.
Spencer, just wanted to ask about making the move for you. Todd, we heard from Todd Monkin, and he said they want you to obviously be the left tackle. So making that move back after you played there as a true freshman, number one, and I guess what did you make throughout this draft process of all the discussion about, you possibly moving to the interior and being very flexible? What did you make of all of that?
I've just been ready. In my training, I've been taking snaps at every position. Because depending on the team that chose me, I could have been in one of them. So I'm super grateful to be the left tackle for Cleveland Browns. I'm pumped. I'm so pumped.
Anybody else?
Spencer, I'm sorry if this was asked. I just walked in the room. I just wanted to know your feelings about playing left tackle again. I'm sorry if it's a repeat question.
No, of course it is. I'm excited. I mean, I only left tackle. I only changed positions because that's what my team needed me to do. So I'm really excited to be back there. And oh my gosh, I'm pumped. I'm pumped.
Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right, that was Spencer Fano. We just jumped right to the reaction. That's how it goes in draft night. These things move quick. We're going to step away off the leash. Draft night continues after this.
You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
All right, we are going right back to Berea head coach Todd Monkin at the podium talking about Spencer Fano.
Character, athleticism, toughness.
Todd, where does he play on the line?
Left tackle.
Are you concerned that he hasn't played that in a couple of years at all?
No.
Why not?
Ended up where as he moved over to right tackle, they played Caleb over on that side. So now he's going to play left tackle for us.
Let's do away with Mike. Jeff.
Yeah.
Hey, Todd, so what's it like your first draft as a head coach? What's his experience?
Well, we were jacked. I mean, to be able to move back 3 spots, pick up a 3rd and a 5th, what a great job by Andrew, and get the player we targeted the whole time. And, I mean, we couldn't be any more excited and still have another pick later on tonight.
So you had Jordan Tyson was still on the board when you guys made the trade down. So obviously then Spencer must have been your guys' number 1.
No, we targeted Spencer.
With Spencer being the first tackle off the board, what was it about him that you thought separated him from the rest of this pretty deep tackle class?
As I said, his character was first. I mean, the way he's wired. I think the expectations that we'll have for him won't even match that he has for himself. And his athleticism, his toughness. I mean, when you want to start off the first year of your regime, I mean, when you talk about what you want, character, toughness, athleticism, he has it all.
There was a lot of speculation throughout the draft process that Spencer might move in inside to guard or center just because of the arm length. What did you see on film that alleviates the concerns about arm length at that tackle position?
Well, I think his athleticism and his toughness. I just think all of the above. I mean, do I think that's a part of it? Reach? Of course that is. An arm length? Of course it is. But there's other things that are involved with it, other characteristics that go into that. I think he'd be an elite guard as well. I think he'd be elite center. I don't care where you put him. I think he's going to be an elite player.
Todd, do you know what George Warhop wants in his lineman? Does Spencer Fano fit it better than the others?
I won't speak to where we had the other guys at. I'll just say that we were excited as heck to be able to get Spencer.
I know Andrew said a tackle's a tackle, but the fact that Spencer played left early on at Utah, was that important for you guys to see?
It's part of the equation, yes.
Those Utah teams, I mean, their physicality is sort of always been sort of their calling card. I mean, how much does that, that program DNA, do you see in Spencer, and how much was that an attractive, part of that?
A big piece of it. You go all the way back to Urban Meyer and then Coach Whittingham. I mean, when you get a player from Utah, I mean, you get a player that's physical. They're going to practice physical. They're going to play physical. Their style, their expectations of their old linemen. So, again, we're fired up.
Would you still like to get a receiver pretty high in this draft if you can?
Sure. And we'd like to add, there's a number of areas we'd like to add to our team, that being one of them.
Were you guys at all surprised with how the board fell previous to your guys' pick?
I wouldn't say that. I think it fell pretty close within reason. As far as I could tell, being in there with Andrew and his group, it fell off the board the way it appeared to me that it was going to go.
Did you get Spencer in for a 30 visit? Because I know that was...
We did.
Okay.
We did.
What stood out during that visit?
To everything that I've already said. I mean, it's pretty easy that, I mean,
You have Spencer Fano as your left tackle. Does it affect the movement of any other positions on your line that we saw the other day?
What we saw the other day was really who we had. With Elton being out, Titus being a little bit limited, and trying to put all the pieces together. Ultimately, once the draft is over and free agency and we go to camp, then we'll work on exactly where everybody's going to fit that was here the other day.
You came in and talked a lot of just about how it all kind of starts in the offensive line. You mentioned that, I know, at the Combine. With what the resources you guys spent in free agency to sort of bolster that group, now your first pick is a tackle. Was this kind of, when you came in and took this job, what you envisioned as you thought about kind of rebuilding this offense, that it would start with figuring out that group?
100%.
Good. All right, Browns head coach Todd Monkin, after his first-round pick as an NFL head coach. We are going to go back to Berea right now. Leah Doherty standing by with Fred Greetham of the OBR. They were there for the call with Fano, there for the presser with Todd Monkin. Guys, what do you think? thought we had them. We do not. Tell you what, we're going to step aside for a hot minute. When we come back, hopefully we'll reestablish connection with Leah and Fred, and we've also got some draft updates to talk you through as well.
You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
Can you guys hear me now?
Like, does she get Reese or somebody like that, or no?
Waiting
Take-
for him, but I don't think. Yeah, we can hear you.
You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
All right, we have identified the gremlins. We have throttled them and thrown them out of the room. And so we are going to go back to Berea, where Leah Doherty, Fred Greetham of the OBR, standing by. They were there for the press conference, there for the call with Spencer Fano. How did it strike you, guys?
Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, like you mentioned, Mark, just moments ago we got to hear from Spencer Fano. Before that, we heard from Todd Monkin. Character, athleticism, toughness. Those are the three. He was very concise words he had to say. But what were your first impressions after hearing from Fano?
You know, it was hard. It was kind of on a conference call. It was kind of garbled. But, boy, he said over and over how excited he was. He was just, they always say that, you know, and you have to understand their moment. But, boy, he was just almost, he said he was in tears. You know, he was so excited to get that call to come play for the Browns and Todd Monkin. And he said that over and over and over. And Monkin said that they targeted him, and even though they traded down, that's who they wanted all along and felt he would be there at 9. And so if that's it, mission accomplished. I just went by Andrew Barry, said congratulations. He was grinning ear to ear. So he's pretty happy about it, to move down 3, pick up 2 extra picks, and get the guy they said they were targeting. First tackle off the board.
Yeah, and if that's truly the guy that we're targeting, I mean, that's a really smart move by the Browns. We were talking about it moments ago, that all the moves they've been making have been addressing their biggest need, offensive line.
Yeah, they have really not made any moves other than offensive line. I mean, they went out 3 big moves, 1 trade, 2 big free agents, and now you get the left tackle. So basically, that's your offensive line. And even though Fano played right tackle the last 2 years, Todd Monkin said he's the left tackle, no question.
And, you know, I appreciate that. I appreciate, like, no ambiguity. We got the direct, like, honest answer, too, which I think was something we're going to appreciate with Monkin. It was also worth noting when Fano spoke a couple minutes ago, talked about Joe Thomas, you know, idolizing him. You know, obviously those are all the right things to say, but just he could not overstate how excited he was to be coming to Cleveland and playing for the Browns.
Yeah, and if he can even be close to Joe Thomas, that's what you wanted when you draft a tackle in the top 10, is to be that mainstay for 10 years or so. And so hopefully that's who they got with Fano. And Utah's kind of known for, you know, developing offensive tackles.
Yeah, and could be playing alongside a soon-to-be Browns legend, Joel Bitonio, but we have no idea what his future
Yeah,
holds as well.
if he came back, the line would be set, because there's 4 of the 5 are for sure set with the 3 big free agent trade and now Fano.
Yeah, so we'll just wait and see. For now, Fred Greetham, Leah Doherty. Mark, we'll go ahead and send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Leah. And you heard Fred say there, he kept saying over and over how excited he was, and I know they all say that, but he knows he's going to kind of get a chance to come in, play right away, play for an offensive head coach, play with guys. I'm sure he's been a Shedeur Sanders fan. He's probably been a Deshaun Watson fan at some point. He's going to get a chance to play with some guys he likes.
Said he idolized Joe Thomas. And obviously, Joe, very early on with all these young offensive linemen, goes to work. He makes it a point to come back and help coach them and give them anything they might need. So to hear Joe Thomas, that's immediate indoctrination into the dog pound. It's always a good start. And also, the first of the top 30 visits. He was the guy who drove from Indy. So Todd Monkin absolutely loved that about him. And so obviously they had targeted him for a while, and they were willing to take the risk. They knew what the board looked like. They knew, based on their intel, that they could afford to trade down 3 spots and still be able to get him.
All right, so we had a lot of conversation about who went 13. That was Ty Simpson. And then I'm going to let Jeff Slauson announce who was selected 14th by the Rams.
I'm going to choose to decline saying that name. It is a guard from Penn State. Look, I've been like 0 for 13 for names today, even normal names like Jordan Tyson. Yeah, that is no offense to that individual. that is not a name that I prepped.
It's a long name. He's a guard. We have not talked about him.
He's a guard. The Browns didn't need it, so it didn't matter. Ruben Bain, I can say.
Yeah, Ruben Bain went to the Bucks. That was a little later than people thought he would.
Kenyon Sadiq, then he goes to the Jets.
He's a top tight
from
end.
Oregon. He's great. That's a bummer. And then Blake Miller to the Lions now, what we know from Clemson. But you just feel bad for these kids that get drafted to the Jets that have high upside and a lot of excitement ahead of them. And then they get drafted to the Jets, and it's like, well, figure it out, man.
Hey, man, they got Geno back.
Oh, you're right. It's solved.
They got Geno back.
Super Bowl,
Did it.
right?
Yeah.
Super Bowl bound now.
This poor kid.
And Blake Miller, the tackle from Clemson, just went to the Lions. Did I hear we had Ashley and Zach standing by in Pittsburgh? Are they there?
Yep, where you got them.
All right, so if we can, let's pull up our feed from Pittsburgh. There they are. Guys, we had a run on Buckeyes there for a while. Tate at 4, Reese at 5, Styles at 7. And then we got Downs at 11. Did you guys get a chance to talk to any of those folks yet? Or no, I know it's really chaotic there. It doesn't always happen quickly.
Let me tell you something. I just want to shout out Zach Keenan, because this man, you guys don't understand how far it is just to get from the podium room all the way back to the other side of the field in order to go live and see where all of our stuff was. Zach was a madman running all the way across the field and through the stadium, and he was just sweating bullets. So shout out to Zach for making sure that we have made it a way to get on this draft special. But like you said, it was a slew of Ohio State Buckeyes, and we actually did get a chance to speak to Arvell Reese, who is now a New York Giant. And you know what? He just said how incredibly happy he was to be in this position. I asked him about what Ted Ginn Sr. meant to him, because he said he would not be in this position if Ted was not in his life. And he said that he didn't have any offers when he was looking at Glenville, and Ted was the one that called him and said, look, I'm going to get you straight. I'm going to get you where you need to be. And he gave so much credit to Ted to where he is today.
Yeah, and I think part of that is we have such a humble young man in Arvell Reese that the New York Giants organization is really lucky to have. I had my headphones on when he got up on the podium listening in to the audio feed. The first thing he does is he looks up with these big eyes of the crowd. He goes, oh my God. And that just shows you that this is a guy who went to Euclid. He was on a winless team at Euclid High School, transferred to Glenville. He's been a big fish in a small pond in a lot of his life, and that's certainly going to be extension when you're going to the Big Apple. But I think you got a humble, a hard worker, someone who's going to play every rep in practice and play to win every single game, and that's a great landing destination. I think Jeff Slauson was joking about the Jets not being an ideal place for him, but the Giants are at a super exciting time. And he's not already going to be the best edge rusher on that team. So he may draw double teams. He may be the beneficiary of other guys drawing double teams like Abdul Carter. So I think this is a really cool landing destination where we'll get to see Arvell shine, Ashley.
And then we also got to hear a little bit from Jordan Tyson. We didn't talk to him yet, but we were able to hear a little bit on the broadcast and whatnot and what they were doing here at the stadium. And you could just see how all the emotions were coming out. We do know that is the younger brother of Jalen Tyson playing with the Cavaliers right now. But this guy was just brought to tears. You could tell how much he wanted. He's been through so much, and now he's finally with the New Orleans Saints. He's a professional. He's a wide receiver. He is in the NFL, and I mean, this guy had spit coming out of his mouth. You could tell how much this moment meant to him, and we're actually waiting to hear from him in the podium right now.
Yeah, Jordan's someone with lightning speed. I think if he's not a 4.4, he's a 4.3 guy in the 40-yard dash. And he's had a string of bad luck, not only with the injuries that we saw at Colorado and then at Arizona State, but also back in high school. He started at one school, transferred to another, 3 different high schools, went to Colorado. He said that he felt like he was forgotten. He was left behind when Deion Sanders took over that program, and that's why he transferred to Arizona State. Had to sit out his entire first year rehabbing an injury, finally broke out. He was a member of the team in 2024. He was a centerpiece of that team in 2024. That was one of the Big 12 champions, one of the best teams in Arizona State football history. And then the year after, to have just continuous success, be faced with injuries yet again, and be so resilient. Yeah. I think the Saints are an interesting destination where he is going to be dealing with Chris Olave fighting for reps, but hey, maybe that means that Olave draws double teams and Tyson can finally get some of that single coverage where he'll really be spectacular.
And that was something he said on the broadcast. He was like, look, I can do it. You can get through this. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. It was also kind of cool because we were hoping that we were going to be able to see that Jordan Tyson, Jalen Tyson kind of bromance going on when it came to, the light. There goes the light, guys. This is the thing with live TV. You just really don't know what's going to happen. This is what's going on at the NFL draft right now. But just to go ahead and just to finish things up, we didn't get a chance to talk to you guys about the pick, the Browns trading back for Spencer Fano out of Utah. Obviously, the Browns were not worried that their guy was not going to be there if they decided to trade back, and they got 3 picks for it.
Yeah, I love the Fano pick. We'll be really short here because I don't know if they're kicking us out or whatever. They're not motion activated. I'm letting around, but Fano is awesome. He's huge. He's 6'5", 311. He came onto campus, I think, about 265 pounds and put on 50 pounds in like a year. And then more impressively for those 300-pound guys, he stayed at that weight. Now, the Browns needed an immediate starter on the offensive line. That's exactly what they got there. But they also filled a secondary need, and that's for a blocking tight end. Harold Fannin is an awesome pass catcher. Love to see him in there, but Blake Whitehart's your next guy up. You need a stronger blocking tight end. And what's really cool is that at University of Utah, under Jason Beck in that RPO scheme and some jumbo sets, he actually lined up at tight end. So we'll get the opportunity to maybe see some of that, and you can see him pick up reps there as that 6 offensive linemen.
All right, guys, well, we're going to go back to the podium. We don't have a light over us. This is live TV. This is just what happens. We are going to send it back to you back in the studio for the draft special.
Thanks, Ashley.
I thought it looked great.
The light goes out. Hey, I understand. You got to give me a thing. The least surprising thing I heard there was that Zach Keenan was running like a crazy man to get content on the air, man. Neither rain nor sleet nor snow.
That's our guy.
Will stop Zach Keenan, man. Like death and taxes. That kid hustles. Love that dude. All right, so Browns now, we're up to 19, right?
Yeah.
19. So they're 5 picks away. Vikings have taken a defensive tackle. We're going to step away, and the Browns pick, assuming they don't trade up, they're probably about 40 minutes, 35 minutes away, but we got a lot to kick around. There are a lot of receivers still on the board. We're going to look at that when we come back.
You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
All right, we got things happening just in that break. Yeah. When we last left you, the Panthers were on the clock, I believe. They took a guard, they took a tackle, Monroe Freeling, Georgia. That doesn't impact the Browns because they got their guy. The Cowboys were then on the board, but they've made a trade with the Eagles. So the Cowboys moved down to 23. Philadelphia is now on the board at 20. Why this is important for the Browns? They are expected to trade A.J. Brown to New England after June 1st, which would open up a hole for them at receiver. I don't know if they have to get one because they still have Devonta Smith, and they just made the trade for not Dubes, but the other guy,
Wicks
with Green Bay. But a lot of people feel this might be for a receiver because I don't know if you really
there's no
want to
other
go
obvious
Wicks
person here. Yeah.
So at that point, you are at either Lemon, or if they want a big guy, they're going to go Boston, or they could go Concepcion. But it feels like we're about to get a run on receivers here. And as the Browns started the run with tackles, they might be reacting to the run of receivers. It hasn't started yet, but we could get one of these where 3 or 4 guys go here quickly with Eagles on the board at 20, Browns sitting at 24.
And here's where the board matters. Eagles potentially need a wide receiver. The Steelers potentially need a wide receiver. The Chargers potentially need a wide receiver. Cowboys, even in the trade back, they could take one if one falls.
Yes, they've only tagged Pickens. He's probably gone after this
so
year.
the Browns have now in front of them 1, 2, 3, 4 teams out of the 4 picks that you realistically could see taking a wide receiver in this situation. Now, the cost of it. The Eagles they get the 20th pick and the 7th.
Yeah.
They give the Cowboys a 23 overall, 114, 137. You use the picks that you got in the trade back, you trade up.
So how funny would this be? The Cowboys and Eagles obviously hate each other.
In the division,
Yes. And what if the Browns decide to call the Steelers?
Hey, yes.
Hey!
Yes.
Since we're mending fences. That would be a funny. I can't remember the last time the Browns and Steelers made a trade. I mean, I'm assuming it's probably happened. But
pure anarchy.
But the Eagles, where were the Eagles at 23? Who did the Eagles, this is the other way to look at this, I guess. Who did the Eagles want to get ahead of? They obviously wanted to get ahead of either Pittsburgh or the Chargers. We can't assume it's just Pittsburgh. Maybe they wanted to get ahead of the Chargers, and the Steelers weren't moving the pick. So maybe this is not for a receiver. They wanted to get ahead of the Chargers or the Steelers for somebody.
So who would
Which
the Steelers...
also, that could have been the need for a receiver.
Right. Well,
but they were already ahead of the Browns, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, because it could also be the situation if you don't want another team to do the trade up. So your idea is, okay, we're going to be the ones to do the trade up. So it's not necessarily, getting ahead of anybody. That could also be the situation in this.
Anyone need a safety here?
That's what I was also looking at because, you currently have
Dylan, I don't know how to say it.
Thieneman? Yeah. Thieneman?
Thieneman is OU?
I'm kind of wrong. That's Oregon.
You're our names guy tonight. That's good enough for me.
If you're looking for someone to not say a name right, just call me. I got you.
There's also the kid from Toledo.
Yes.
He was rated as a first rounder, too.
Yeah,
right?
I would be stunned if he doesn't go the way that the prognosticators had bandied his name about. But, look, this is the hard part about the draft is being at the mercy. We'll forever wonder.
It is Mekhi Lemon.
It is Lemon. Wow.
Lemon to the Eagles at 20.
And that was somebody, a lot of my buddies who are Browns fans, they were salivating over the chance to get him. We remember he had the horrendous interview at the Combine that was made to be such a big deal. Since then, I think all is good, but it's interesting. A team gets ahead of you, and of course, the Browns will stay all along. Whichever receiver they end up getting at 24, if it is indeed 24, was the guy they had all along. That tends to be what these teams like to say.
This is very weird because I was told last year, if you have a bad interview at the Combine, you fall to the 5th round.
Right, that's what they tell you.
So, I mean, wow.
I'm still
Apparently you can overcome that.
There are groups of fans, very loud, outspoken, who say that he did no wrong at the Combine last year. So that is just something that we're always going to have to wonder.
I was
particularly
told that was a
brutal from
4-round ding. Bad interview at the Combine, 4-round ding.
Mark Schwab has to get going.
I got to go do
television.
some TV.
And we are going to go to a break in about a minute here. So, Mark, good to see you. You'll see Mark again in a couple of minutes here. I'm taking the reins.
I like he does the walk-off.
Yeah, he just leaves. He doesn't even say anything, and then he just makes noises on his way out. Okay, so we're going to go to break in a minute. As we prepare to go to break here, now we know officially the top wide receivers are off the board. Who do we, with very quickly, who would you want the Browns to take with who's left?
I think you're looking at KC Concepcion. At this point, remember, he is a bit of a spark plug, right? He's not the size guy. So that's the only thing, if that makes you wonder. Look, wide receiver, very checkered past of drafting wide receivers.
Yeah.
When it comes to Andrew Berry, he's had to trade for them instead, obviously, over the years. But, look, all along, I assumed that they were going to go Cardell Tate with their first pick, and then we weren't going to be talking wide receiver at the end, and now you're wondering who's even going to be available by the time they pick.
Fry, you have like 5 seconds.
Omar Cooper Jr. championship pedigree.
I love that. I think they're all fun. Yeah. I think either way, whichever way you go, honestly, we're at a fairly decent spot. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Then we will come back, and we will be ever closer to the next pick for the Cleveland Browns. Stay with us.
You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
Oh, yeah, we're back. Jeff Sloss and Anthony Lima. Chris Fry breaking into the third hour now of our draft show as we prepare for, hopefully, another Cleveland Browns draft pick. Let's just recap, gentlemen, where we kind of have been from here. Fernando Mendoza went predictably #1 overall. Couple of surprises. We had David Bailey go second overall when we thought that Arvell Reese was probably the better edge rusher, and he did not go there. We saw the first wide receiver off the board in Cardinal Tate. He went 4th overall to the Titans. Jeremiah Love, a running back, went top 3. That never ends well, but hopefully it does for him. The Browns traded back with the Chiefs. Chiefs jumped up to 6 to grab a cornerback. Browns end up taking Spencer Fano out of Utah with their pick at 9. And then all stuff broke loose at 13th overall when the Rams took Ty Simpson at quarterback. And then from there, we've kind of seen fairly standard stuff, right, boys?
Yeah.
Your impressions of the draft so far? How we thought, not how we thought? Where are we at?
I think, once again, NFL drafts, they're always surprises. I think Ty Simpson, as you've eloquently said, and his reaction, by the way, was amazing.
I wished I could have been more eloquent.
But it was relevant because even though a lot of prognosticators thought that Ty Simpson would go first, I don't think he's a first round guy. But for him to go so high was very surprising. And look, my argument was, Lima, that I didn't want the Browns trading their pick to try to gather more picks, but I think the trade that they made with Kansas City and then able to still get the top offensive tackle in the draft, I think it was a brilliant move by Andrew Berry.
It's one thing I think Andrew Berry has shown that he's actually decent at. I'm going to say something and then you'll roll your eyes, but I'll say asset management. He has made some terrific trades. I know there's one in particular that it could go down in history as one of the worst ever, so I understand. If
that may not be on him, though.
We will always be able to have fun debating that. But overall, it took a slight detour to get there, but getting that extra value in a draft where there wasn't huge separation. That was the one thing we had heard about this draft. There was no chasm, after pick number 4. That was never the case in this draft. So I thought logically it always made sense for a bad football team that has had, multiple years outside the playoffs back to back and finishing where they did and needing so many different things. You wanted more cracks at it, and that's exactly what they did. The fact that they went offensive line first, and now it looks like they were chasing wide receiver. The question is who's going to be available with that big Eagles trade that kind of changed things, at least potentially, on the wide receiver situation. I still would be a little stunned if they don't get the guy that they want. Of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be very interesting, looming large now, as they're getting ready to make their pick at home in front of a lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people. Right there.
It's always funny when the home team trades the pick. I love that when it's like, all right, here's our pick. Never mind. Okay, so Pittsburgh has made their pick, so they are going to be making that.
So what do we got?
The
What
Prince
did I
of
miss?
Darkness
What did I miss?
rejoined us here.
The Prince of Darkness.
Were you here when Mekhi Lemon was the choice?
I was. I heard that. Thank you.
So Mekhi Lemon, the pick. We kind of recapped the draft from where we started, obviously, which was at no picks, and then we were ultimately at 20 picks.
Also, 4 Ohio State players went in the top 11. You had a slew of Big Ten dudes. They are blowing away the SEC.
Don't even
the other
start
division.
that.
Sorry,
Don't
Brian.
even start that.
Had to do it.
Don't even start that.
I know
Let me start counting how many SEC players in. Hold
What is it, like
steady,
4?
Cowboy.
There's not that many, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
again, I'm sure the SEC will again win a national championship. I just don't know when that will actually be. I've been waiting 20 years to be able to say this.
Here's
okay,
the thing,
so-
Lima. Now that all the other teams can start paying players, some of that luster that the SEC had.
It's amazing how that worked out. It's amazing how that worked out.
This is an NFL draft show, not a college show.
No,
So we're going to
hey, it technically is a college show.
It is.
All right, so hey, I
technically.
want to. The Steelers. I know you've got pretty much every insider on the planet up there. Do we know who they're picking yet?
This is one I have not been able to find. They
Okay.
took all of their time. They took up to like 1 second.
All of 8 minutes.
Pittsburgh people are irate. They really wanted Lemon. A lot of the hosts that I coerce with out there at our sister stations in Pittsburgh.
So that's
who
why
they
the
wanted.
Eagles, that's who the Eagles are getting ahead of then.
Oh,
And
then
that's who the
that's
Eagles
got to
did.
really sting.
It
them.
does.
In-state rival.
cross-state
absolutely.
rival there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That
You know
makes
what
that
really-
way better. The booing was probably elite. Apparently, Tyson, he came out to celebrate his draft pick and everything, and there was booing, and he thought that they were booing him, but they were booing the Browns being on the clock.
Oh,
and so
of course.
The word from the draft is that he was looking around like,
What did I do?
I didn't do
do?
anything. Yeah, I'm just a guy, man.
Unbelievable.
They were booing the Browns, which is understandable and predictable here.
The Steelers went offensive line, looks like.
Oh, okay. So that potentially drops more. Oh, this is another name I don't want to say.
Let's try it. What,
Say,
Get
call
in
him
there.
Max.
Yeah, Max. Big old Max from ASU.
Arizona State guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so now that leaves the Chargers, the Cowboys, and then obviously
Ian Nacho. I know that name.
Oh, okay.
Max
Chris
Ian
Fry.
Nacho. Yes.
That's why you're here, man.
Yep.
Okay, so now that leaves us Chargers, Cowboys, Browns. If you are the Browns and you have a wide receiver that you absolutely love, now's the time to jump up 2 spots.
Do you need to?
And I think it's something we anticipated for a while. Obviously, the Eagles, I wonder how surprised. I wonder what the reaction was in the war room in Berea when they saw Philly hop up. As we know, Andrew Berry's twin brother is in the front office over there. They've had to play a prank at some point, right? They've had to show up April Fool's Day to the wrong building, whatever. But it's like a 1980s sitcom. That sounds like the right setup for that.
Yeah, of course.
But I
Polite laughter, yeah.
I would love to know what that would be like, what that feeling was when they saw Philly jumping, because they knew with all the A.J. Brown rumors swirling that wide receiver was going to be front and center with that pick.
I mean, that confirms now A.J. Brown is a Patriot. We all know what's happening. This is officially confirming that, basically. It's a new era for the Eagles. I love the pick. It's just kind of a bummer for the Browns and for other teams that were potentially hoping that he would fall a little bit more.
I'm dying to know now, do they still get their pick, though, of everybody else? I mean, this whole time, we are at 10:06, and we've been talking about this draft, obviously, now for a couple of hours, but also for a couple of months before that. At no point did we think Lemon would even be in the conversation at 24.
Right.
And I know we've had some fun with it here recently, but for the most part, receiver at 24, we were talking about Cooper, we were talking about Concepcion or Boston. So now we just simply revert to that conversation. Now, one of them might go, the Chargers, the Cowboys. The Cowboys, they got Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, but they just tagged Pickens. They didn't extend him. He's probably not around after this year, so there's a chance they could just pick a guy and next year he takes the place of Pickens. But there's nobody on the board. You're looking ahead of the Browns. They're going, oh, they are definitely taking a receiver, where everyone knows the Browns are taking a receiver, which also means if somebody else wants one, they might try to move up and get ahead of them. But we've talked for a long time now, okay? If the Browns go line early It's Concepcion, it's Boston, it's Cooper. We could find ourselves in that exact scenario here in a few minutes.
Some other names, Keldrick Falk is a very popular edge rusher, Auburn.
Yeah.
You also have Akeem Mesidor, we've talked about quite a bit. He's still on the board. So there's talent that's still there.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's not like these teams would have to go with a wide receiver at this point. There is very much so still quite a bit of talent here that could still go there. I mean, there's some guys, some offensive tackles that are still available in this very deep offensive tackle draft. So there's still talent. So it's not like wide receiver is the only bit of talent here. I just wouldn't be surprised if they did love some guy. Because, Mark, you said, do you need to? You got the extra picks. You have 11 picks now. We know you can toss one of the day 3 picks to get there.
You could move up from 24. I mean, the price has been pretty cheap at this point.
I just say with the Browns, stick to the script. Stick to the script of your needs. And you already took care of one. Get you a good receiver. And I think with Boston and Concepcion, and what was the other receiver?
We have Boston, Concepcion, and Cooper.
So all of those 3, to me, if any of those 3 are available, you can't go wrong.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where I start to look at the board. You talk about, stick to the narrative, and that's where. And the only reason you normally come off the narrative is if there's like a glaring, huge value there. For example, Mesidor, he's still available, but Mesidor had been talked about for a long time as going to Tampa.
Yeah.
Well, they did take an edge, but they took Bain. Nobody had him being there.
Yeah.
Right? So that was one of those scenarios like, wait a minute, we didn't have a scenario where this dude was on the board. I don't see a scenario for the Browns that there's a guy there that makes you go, I can't believe that dude is still there.
Yeah.
Unless for some reason they think Jermod McCoy is a super value and they feel good about his knee. The only reason McCoy probably is still there is because of his knee. But other than that, I don't see any huge faller here. And this is where you, as Chris said, stick to the script.
Stick to the script.
Pick a receiver. It's just a matter of which one.
Yeah, literally every single mock draft that has existed this draft season has had one of those 3 receivers. The Browns taking them at 24.
There you go.
And that's where we are. I mean, at least appears to be that's where we are.
Yeah.
So this is the Charger. The pick is Chargers pick is in.
Okay, I have still not found that one.
I mean, the TVs are still just showing the Steeler room because they like to run 20 minutes behind the rest of the world.
How many wide receivers have gone so far?
I can tell you only 3.
3?
3.
So it's the top tier is now gone, and we're on to that second tier.
What do we want to put the over-under at?
Over-under
5 or 6 wide receivers being taken.
Yeah, I mean, this was supposed to be where the run, hypothetically, was going to go. The offensive line run was going to go earlier than the wide receivers. All the pundits kind of universally thought this was going to be that dicey area. If you're waiting for the guy to come to you, it does get tough. Now, look, the Browns were able to trade down and get their offensive linemen. Right. So are they going to be able to sit there and maintain their haul of picks with 11 picks?
Mesidor to the Chargers, which means it is the Cowboys and then the Browns.
The only obvious player that is better than one of these receivers is Falk now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys took, as we all know, a defender and Caleb Downs. I could see the Cowboys taking a receiver, but then, the Browns then have their pick of the other 2.
Well, I mean, if for the Cowboys is they're next, right?
It's Cowboys next and then the Browns.
So,
yes, sir.
I mean, losing, who went to his memory escapes me. He just left.
Who?
For the Cowboys. He went to Green Bay.
Wex.
Yeah, Parsons.
Parsons.
Thank you. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But
you just went. I'm like, that was a year. I'm thinking of somebody else.
But you got to try to replace that. You can't replace the production. But if you got an edge rusher who's there, that's your next best pick for the Cowboys at least.
I'm trying to remember. They didn't really. They got a defensive tackle in that trade. I don't remember if they took an edge last year. And that kid's not.
No,
he's been okay, but they didn't get the edge.
Well, if you want to get another edge, then in this situation,
you're probably at Falk.
That's where you get Falk.
So now, if you're the Browns, you pretty much have your pick of the litter of.
Could you imagine being that kid?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Hey, this was the pick that we gave for Micah Parsons.
Yeah. Now you
live
have
up
to
to that.
Him. Yeah.
It's like less than ideal. We should probably take a break.
That is actually a great idea. Let's do that. The Browns on the clock soon. Oh, we got a Cavs playoff game coming.
Yes, we do.
Oh, my goodness. What a night in
Stay
Cleveland.
Focused.
It's going to be a crazy half hour right now for Cleveland sports.
Yeah. See you after the break.
You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
Dallas Cowboys on the board at 23. The pick is not in yet, but they've got about 2.5 minutes left on the clock. And then after the Cowboys, it is the Browns. And that's going to be a lot of fun discussion, especially if the Cowboys do not take a receiver. Let's just start here, guys. We've got a few minutes. Which receiver do you like the most at this point for the Browns?
Well, I'll tell you, Fry has been all over Omar Cooper of Indiana, and I just watched every Indiana game this year.
Mm-hmm.
They were a team as an Ohio State fan. I knew that was going to be formidable, that I was kind of comparing us to them throughout the season, and that dude made every big catch. And I know he's not going to wow anybody with the physicals, right? The actual, speed or anything like that. I just saw that guy make the big plays after the big plays every single time, and that's got to count for something, right? And we're not talking about him like number 6 overall.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a late first-round pick and somebody that you're hoping can be reliable.
He's not Jeremiah Smith, but he did everything well for Indiana. And plus one of the leading guys to help them win a national championship. I just think with the Browns, if you want to change culture, you got to bring in guys who know how to win. I know they may love Concepcion. He's twitchy. Twitchy.
My favorite term.
Sounds like a nickname that I can name my kid.
Browns on the clock, by the way.
Browns are on the clock. I like the Cooper pick. If they go with him, great. If they don't, that's fine. But what did I say earlier? Stick to the script. And Boston, Concepcion, or Cooper, pick any of those three. I think you're fine.
Yes. Cowboys have taken a pass rusher, Malachi Lawrence, so the Browns get their choice.
Okay.
Bless you. Woo! Okay, can I zag? Bless
I always
you
go
again.
in pairs.
All right.
Go for it.
You got to relax here.
I don't have a cough button, man. It's a.
Mark's just so excited.
Relax. Keep it together.
Come on. Tell your allergies to relax. I'm going to zag, if I may, if Mark allows me. Mark allows me one zag a day. I'm going Denzel Boston. I love this kid.
So you love the size.
I do. No. And I understand the issue of the lack of separation. I completely get that. But this dude's a freak. He catches everything within whatever radius he gets to. While he cannot create that separation off the line, and he's not going to beat anybody off the line, this is a kid that can go up and get the ball. And if you have a quarterback who loves to throw the deep ball, but not necessarily with aggressive accuracy, he might be the guy to go to. I hate draft comps. I want to start by saying that.
Perfect.
However,
So give us the comp.
However, the comp that I got for Denzel Boston was Cortland Sutton.
Oh, I'd take Cortland Sutton. I love that dude. He's great.
So 6'3", 212 is Denzel. Strong, great route running, and elite ball skills. He, again, lacks separation and doesn't have the greatest acceleration. I do not care. This is a guy that you throw the ball anywhere near him, he's gonna catch it, and I love a player like that.
You know who's a comparison, and you made a comp comparison. I don't know if he's going to be this. He may have this type of caliber of play, but Josh Gordon. Gordon, 6'3", 225. I mean, if you're talking size, Josh Gordon wasn't fast.
He was fast.
He was
fast.
He ran a 4.5. He's timed at a 4.5, but in the open field, that guy was streaking like a gazelle.
So there you go. So once again, you can put the comps and go to a pro day and they can run a certain speed, but when you're in the game, it's a different.
KC Concepcion to the Browns.
All right.
That was my guy.
There
That's who I wanted.
Right.
That's the dude I was hoping would be there at 24-4.
Oh, that's just
receiver
fun,
out
man.
of Texas A&M. Twitchy coming to
Twitchy!
Cleveland.
Oh, I love this kid.
He's 5, just a tick under 6 foot. Real good off the line. Fat. I like this guy. His college numbers this year would have been a lot better. His college quarterback did not help him. I'm getting some hand signals. What you got, Avery? What's that?
Oh,
KC Concepcion.
Do we have the draft party, Steven?
From Texas A&M.
No.
To
draft party. Okay.
So
Cleveland Browns.
We want to be very clear. We are ahead of everything else.
Yeah.
We are.
Yes, we are ahead. Sorry.
Like
man.
Listen, the world moves at the speed of social media, not ESPN's production curve.
Let's just give you the quick rundown for those that are unfamiliar with KC Concepcion. 5'11", 196. Fantastic with yards after the catch. Say it with me, everybody. He's twitchy. There he is.
Oh, I look at the comp, and I love this first comp.
So the cons are his size.
No, not cons. on a comp. Give me the
yeah,
comp.
we'll get there in a second.
I want that guy's name.
And he's not a great blocker, but I don't really care.
I don't either.
Luther Burden.
I love Luther Burden.
And Josh Downs are the comps.
I am a huge Luther Burden truther.
I mean, this is a guy. This is a fun pick, man. I really like this.
I do too. I love it. I'm happy as a clam. If you weren't going to get one of those elite guys,
right.
I can understand the argument for Cooper. I can understand the argument for Boston. I just feel like this dude's a more complete receiver.
Now, you're not worried about the lack of size between him and Judy?
No. I don't.
For
I don't care.
For your, whether it's Shedeur Sanders, whether it's Deshaun Watson.
Obviously,
you have Harold Fannin.
This is what it boils down to for me. And this one of the things it boils down to. What are the odds Concepcion is a bust? What are the odds Boston is a bust? I feel like the bust rate on Boston
is very high.
Is pretty high.
It's very high.
I can't find a lot of folks that go, I don't think Concepcion can play on Sunday.
Is this like a Zay Flowers? Is that who, you might be thinking of?
Zay Flowers is
Zay
pretty
Flowers
good.
is a little more. Zay Flowers is really good.
Yeah, he's good.
Zay Flowers is one of those dudes that he was like drafted. He could be an extension of the running game and gadget. I don't know if you hear that so much with Concepcion. He could do those things.
Right.
Actually, he can run the ball. Yes, he does have a run piece to his game.
Yeah.
That might not be a bad little comp there. I get excited about Luther Burden, man. The Bears took him last year in the second round. I thought he was so awesome.
He was a good
at
player
Missouri.
in Missouri. Also, another tidbit that fans will get to know about Casey Concepcion, and if you saw his draft interview, he has a stutter. And he spoke during his, and it trended, and a lot of people admired the bravery that he has really gone through to try to improve his speech. He didn't speak a lot at Texas A&M, but now in the Browns, he's going to speak probably a little bit more, and hopefully the organization will help guide him through that process. But I think that's another part of his story here in Cleveland. He can be more of an inspiration off the field.
Absolutely. Anytime you can overcome something like that, and now he's going to be, he already is in the public eye.
Yes, he
more
is.
so.
He'll be a very popular player.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Hard to
Yes.
not like that guy.
Yeah, and I get the size with Boston and stuff like that. And you're right, they don't have a guy like that. Maybe they get one. Maybe they get Chris Bell out of Louisville in the second round, something like that. I don't know. But I get nervous. Even with Cooper, I'm nervous. I can't find too many people that think Casey Concepcion won't be able to cut it in the NFL. And that's really important to me because, it sounds dumb, but they need guys that can play.
Yeah. He has.
He's not a luxury pick for them. They need this dude.
Well, that was the script going in. You had wide receiver, offensive line in one order or another. That was the big debate all the last really month. Just what was going to be the order of operations when it came to that. Were they going to go offensive line first? Were they going to go wide receiver first? In the lead up to the draft, I just kind of assumed they were getting Carnell Tate, and it was going to be a wide receiver. I know there was a lot of buzz for Jordan Tyson that seemed to be a little out of whack. But, people get excited about some of the sexy plays that guy was showing off. In the end, they go offensive line first. They get some more ammo and get the receiver later.
I'll tell you what, I want to go to break because we might get a presser at some point here in Berea soon, and there's another thing to talk about with this trade. Stick around. Off the Leash. Draft night continues.
You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
All right, Browns select KC Concepcion with the 24th pick in the first round, and this completes the trade last year with Jacksonville, the return for the number 2 pick, which of course turned into Travis Hunter with Mason Graham, KC Concepcion, and Quinshawn Judkins. Still, I feel, it's too early to say exactly what they got here, but we really like Judkins. Graham had his moments. We've been throwing bouquets at Concepcion here for a while. At first blush, it feels like the Browns did okay with that value.
This feels very good. Just from we're looking at this form, that feels pretty good. The Bears took a safety, by the way. So now the Bills are on the clock. That means nothing to me, obviously. I'm just saying it for no reason at all.
Resident. If your Buffalo Sabres come next to me.
Man, the Sabres won tonight. I'm fine. Hi. So, yeah, just everything's chill. Okay, so we have the pros and cons, right, Steven? Yep. Let's just pull it up for the folks at home here, so I'm not just talking at this point. Okay.
There's Twitchy.
That's your new nickname.
I love it so. I think it is the greatest term for a wide receiver in human history. The drops can be a concern, though. That is the only thing.
So I can talk about this a little bit because there's a guy I follow. I think I mentioned to you, Matt Waldman. Yep. Matt Waldman does a great job, but he only deals with the fantasy space. But this is a guy who's really good at. He's got like NFL teams buy his product, so this is a legit guy. And he calls guys like this clap attackers. So what he means by that is Concepcion is one of these players that does not necessarily get his hands together in the appropriate position to catch it. Right. He kind of almost brings them together at the last minute around the ball and snatches it. Well, he's not like this, right? He's kind of doing like this. And that's how you can get some come through your hands. Right. That's not a death knell to guys. We talked about Cortland Sutton a little bit ago. Cortland Sutton's a guy that does that, and he's had a pretty good career. That is something you can absolutely coach out of a guy. Yes. That's where the drops come from with him. So that's something, if you can, coach it out of him, he should be fine there.
Bills just traded back 2 spots with Houston. Jeff is happy.
I wonder what the Texans want.
I think to go on your point, I think when you get these guys that have some bad habits and maybe coming from high school to college, you come to the pros. I mean, this is specialized down to the detail.
Yes.
So he's going to be working from the time now getting to Cleveland, going through rookie OTAs, and then going through minicamp. Coaches are going to probably be working on that tirelessly to clean up all the little mistakes that he made at A&M, to clean them up, to get him ready for the regular season.
That's a good deal. Yeah. So 26 and 91 for 28, 63, and 168.
On this Bills trade?
Yeah, they moved back two spots and picked up a third.
Okay.
When we saw the one Cowboys trade, they gave it 2 fifths.
All right, what this tells you, the Texans clearly want to get ahead of San Francisco.
So what could they be going after then?
What do they want?
So the Texans are in need of O-line, D-line, linebacker, cornerback, and edge. The Niners are in need of O-line and an edge as well. So is that going to be then for
Caleb
Falk?
Here's a name I'm going to mess up. Lomu? Is it for Falk, the edge?
Yeah, the other Utah tackle could be him too. But you're right, yeah. They clearly want to jump ahead of the Niners there, and the Bills are potentially convinced they can keep what they had.
I mean, yeah.
So there is another element here in play that we shouldn't lose track of. We are on the air here for another 30 minutes on this show, and then we still have 19 news at 11 over, obviously on 19 until 11:30. We'll get some reaction in there as well. But the Browns have this second-round pick.
Right.
They do have ammunition to move back into the first round.
Yes. They do.
They did this a few years ago. They had 2. The year they took Garrett and they took Peppers, and then they moved back and they got David Njoku, which was a sad story. Not that we don't like David Njoku, but T.J. Watt was on the board. They took Njoku. Watt went next to the Steelers. Can you imagine if they had 3 firsts and came away with Garrett and Watt in the same draft? That's a separate show.
I did not know
However, they and the Seahawks would love to trade out of that pick because Seattle's sitting at 32
and they have 5
would
picks.
love to pick up some picks. So I'm sure the Browns won't be the only ones calling them. If the Browns are interested, I'm just saying
that could happen.
There could be potentially a third shoe to drop tonight for the Browns as we sit here at 10:30 on draft night round 1 or draft night. Well, round 1.
Night round. Yeah.
I'm paid as a professional announcer.
Want to take a break?
Sure, why not? Go for it.
let's
Off
do
the Leash draft night continues after this.
You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
Oh, my word, what a night this has been. A lot of fun so far. Browns pick up a tackle in Spencer Fano at 9. Fano. Then they come back KC Concepcion at 24. And
Dolphins
yes, I said
just
9.
moved up.
Dolphins just moved up. Now, there was some movement by the Texans. They took a tackle. Caleb Rutledge. Not Caleb Rutledge. Maybe it is Caleb. Keelan Rutledge out of Georgia Tech.
That's my bad.
So he is gone. We're going to go to Berea. It looks like we're getting some action. Hold on.
I just wanted to ask you, first of all, about a little bit about your versatility in your game, not just on offensive receiver, but also what you bring in the return game, and how much was that sort of a selling point when you met with the Browns?
Casey, are you there?
All right, we got a little bit of a gremlin in the system out there in Berea. They're waiting on a call with KC Concepcion. That's how this goes, by the way, on draft night. You might think speakerphones are all the rage on draft night.
Well, you got to think he's in
Oh,
Charlotte.
now we're getting reverb. Yeah, that's less than ideal.
So, all right.
So Dolphins just traded up to 27. I think they could go for a wide receiver here because Tyreek Hill is no longer.
Yes.
Remember the Dolphins?
Yes.
That team, they needed a receiver, honestly, more than the Browns did.
They need everything.
Yes, they do. That team is horrible.
roster
Like, you
is
can-
so bad,
you
dude.
can
Mike
point to the
McDaniel
Browns.
ruined that team in so many ways.
bad.
Yeah.
Tua, Tyreek Hill, like that team had promise, and whatever happened, it just fell apart just like that.
They need, it's hard to believe a team could need a receiver more than the Browns, but the
Yeah,
Dolphins do.
absolutely.
They don't even have a Jerry Jeudy. And as much as I am a Greg Dulcich stan, he is their tight end and their best pass catcher. The Browns with Fannin and Judy are better off at the pass catching department than the Dolphins. I am framing this because they are now down to Boston, Cooper.
Yep.
Maybe Brazel. I don't know why they take Brazel. I don't want Brazel. I don't think anyone does.
If you like Brazel, you can take him in the second.
You're probably looking at one of those picks here for Miami. And this is where you're glad to be the Browns, who kind of might start the next run on receiver, just like they started the run on tackle. No, they didn't get on Lemon, but Lemon was kind of seen as a continuation of the first tier, not the beginning of the second tier of receiver. Eventually, we will get back to Berea. And if somebody might wonder, wait, what is all that? The way this works is the player is drafted. He takes care of some stuff on the side of the draft, in this case, Pittsburgh. And then they put him on a speakerphone with writers because we can't get him here. They'll be here for tomorrow for press conferences, but we need instant reaction, right? So they put him on a speakerphone. There's a giant phone in the middle of the room, and they pass around a microphone. And you talk to a guy on a speakerphone, and it's like fax machines on signing day.
Shocking that's not flawless. Yeah, really. Yeah, multi-billion-dollar organization. Let's do one phone. Good idea, NFL.
I don't know why that hasn't turned into a Teams or a Zoom meeting from someplace at this point. But
Charlotte, we saw video of him getting drafted. He was around family. He's not in Pittsburgh. He's in Charlotte.
Fair. Right.
So getting in touch with him, I'm sure his agent is trying to coordinate. Like, hey, we got to take this phone call.
Cornerback Chris Johnson goes to the Dolphins.
The Dolphins are refusing to draft a pass catcher.
They say, and I quote, no.
Greg Dulcich might catch 150 balls, and I am here for that.
We love Greg Dulcich.
I am a huge Greg Dulcich fan. You're like, Schwab, this is incredibly random. This is the train when I'm driving it, folks. It can go off the tracks at any time.
Give a little peek behind the curtain here. Mark and I will obsess over random tight ends for years at this point now, and constantly just be like, hey, Greg Dulcich, he had one catch this week, and we're like, yeah, brother, he did. We'll find our guy in this draft.
So you love National Tight End Week every week.
Oh, I love it.
Dude,
first of all, it's Kyle Pitts' biggest game of the year every year.
Oh, yeah.
That's another guy. I will not shut up about Kyle Pitts. But anyway, so we're waiting on Concepcion on the speakerphone. I guess he's just finished faxing in his comments, and now he's going to get on the speakerphone. Bill's on the clock, correct?
Yeah, feeling great.
And who are you guys after here?
We could use a wide receiver. We could use edge. We could use offensive line.
I love that you are saying we because you work for the team.
So sorry. Here we go.
The Browns that we talking to the Browns.
Oh boy. I don't know if that's going to help. Who's his agent? Who's his agent?
Let me know if I got to take it. All right, there we go.
Pretty much it with that, so yeah.
We cannot get a phone call into Berea from Charlotte, North Carolina. Goodness gracious.
Well, he got a phone call from the Browns, right?
Yeah, we know that happened.
That wasn't an issue.
Yeah, hey, Andrew, can you just run your cell down to the media room? Yes. And we could just put that on speaker.
Absolutely.
That noise was absolutely phenomenal.
Bad service in Charlotte.
Buffalo now on the clock at 28. Here's the way it's shaking out right now. Buffalo 28, Kansas City 29, Niners currently sit 30, and then it is your Super Bowl teams. Those picks still in place, 31 and 32, Patriots and Seahawks. There is drama attached to that 32nd pick with Seattle. A lot of people feel that Seattle will move it, and there's a lot of people, if Seattle takes it or takes the pick, they think it'll be Price out of Notre Dame, which would make the top two running backs in this draft both out of the same school.
Yeah. When's the last time that's happened?
I was trying to decide. You got to go back to
was the Cadillac Williams,
Auburn, Cadillac Williams, and Ronnie Brown. But did Cedric Benson go in between them? That's what I can't remember.
I'm trying to think.
There were three running backs, the top five that year.
Did Felix Jones go with Darren McFadden also?
I thought Felix went the next year.
He was a first-round pick. Darren McFadden back in 2008.
Yeah.
Felix Jones went to the Cowboys at 22nd, and of course McFadden went to the Raiders. He was the top.
They were in the same year?
Think so, yes.
I didn't understand what happened to Felix Jones. He was good for like 20 minutes, then just fell apart.
Injuries.
All right,
and he's with the Cowboys, so that always derails your career.
Yep. Get Jeff Coyner in here. He's got some explaining to do.
Just before we kind of, as we head into the season and everything with this kind of went exactly how we thought it was going to go. You got the offensive tackle.
Yes.
You got the wide receiver here. As people approach day two, who do we feel the Browns should be targeting, at least the positions that now they should be targeting after handling the two most glaring needs?
Well, I would say, considering all the speculation about what could happen after the magical June date, when dead cap seems to potentially disappear.
Not as dead.
Anybody interest you in the pass rush game? Any edges? Just saying, don't want to alarm anybody, but there's been enough speculation.
What are you saying there,
At some
Lima?
point it'd be nice if Myles Garrett and the head coach would meet each other face to face. I think that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it would.
Which is the one wild thing that I will tell you, had the Browns with that first overall pick in their first round, if they would have taken a pass rusher, I think we would have been writing the obituary on Myles Garrett as a Cleveland Brown.
See, I don't disagree.
Really?
You can get 2 of them.
Yeah, but if they would have taken them with all the needs
Bills
that they
traded
have
the pick
anyway.
again.
There you go.
Goodness.
To the Patriots. Uh-oh.
All right, so the Patriots now.
What do they need?
Are they coming up for a receiver to send to Dallas?
They have like 12
Are they
picks.
Are they coming up for a receiver to send to Philly for A.J. Brown on the June 1st?
They also need their head coach to talk to the media, but that's another conversation.
No, we did earlier.
By the way, how wild is that? If you didn't hear, obviously there's a lot going on with Vrabel right now with Deanna Rossini and that thing. He had a separate press conference today after having one earlier. A separate one today. Lima, you were talking about people wondering if this guy was going to resign.
Yeah, it was getting really, really hot. The conversation surrounding Vrabel as a new picture came out, a scandalous photo from his past came out every 10 minutes.
Right?
Yeah, it was bizarre, and some of them were from 2020, 2021.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, this has been going on. Whatever's been going on, their relationship, whether it be friends or whatever else you want to say, it got very interesting. And later in the day, after he did not resign, and he talked more about how it's a family matter, she deleted her social media. You didn't get any kind of a denial out of Mike Vrabel. And you just wonder how that plays out in the locker room the first time something happens off the field with a Patriot. And if there's any discipline or whatever, what are these dudes going to be saying about their head coach?
He's like, well, coach did it. Why can't I?
I think we got to take a break here, guys. Let's do that. And then maybe we can come back and again get hung up on by Casey Concepcion. We look forward to that. Off the Leash draft night continues after this.
You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
Call the line directly. Because they're patching.
You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special.
Hello, welcome back to the Draft Night Special. Jeff Slauson, Chris Fry, Anthony Lima, the ghost of Mark Schwab. He is now on TV, and he is done for the evening with us. My computer just froze. Okay, now we're back. Cool, great. So we're still waiting to hear from Casey Concepcion, who is not getting any phone recepcion at the moment.
That was good.
Thank you, guys.
There you go.
Waiting for that one. We were chatting a little bit or before this, kind of about what the Browns have to look forward to, or potentially what fans can look forward to ahead of time here. They still got a lot of draft picks, so they could move around. There's obviously still a whole lot of talent here. Lima, you talked about edge. Obviously very interesting. Could we see a double up on a position like offensive tackle, like wide receiver, where we still have some talent in wide receiver available potentially in the beginning of round 2? You know, Denzel Boston's still there. Omar Cooper Jr., he's still there.
Especially if they trade with Seattle.
Right. So could we?
I think wide receiver could be there too. You know, I keep looking defensively. You know, we were wondering if just because the elite prospects, I know this draft has been plagued with the label that you don't have the elite prospects at the premium positions, that, you know, they might stun a lot of Browns fans, not go with one of their primary offensive needs and go defense early. And what were the positions, you know, you had heard most of them talk about? It was, you know, Caleb Downs, right, Arvell Reese. And I keep thinking about that. And that's why I really think the focus is probably going to be on some sort of a pass rusher with that next pick. But receiver is another one that obviously, look, they now have, I mean, let's be honest here. They've got Jerry Jeudy, who he's really not a number one in this league.
He's not. No.
He's a number one on the Browns, but he's not a number one.
He's a number 3
on this on this team. The receiver they just took, you know, is somebody he's listed at 5'11". You know, also punt returner. You know, I've heard a lot. Browns kind of fallen in love because they've had issues in a return game for what seems to be 5 years now. So I think they like the versatility there. But they do need a bigger bodied wide receiver. You know, how much more are you really going to put? How much stock do you have in Tillman? How much stock do you have in anybody else that they have at wide receiver? So that, to me, at this stage, is what I'm looking at.
Steven, can we pull up Denzel Boston? Do we have his specs there?
And that's all the size, you know.
That's
enough size for 3 guys.
So the Niners just traded with the Jets. The Jets just moved back into round 1. The Jets gave up the 33rd pick and 179th for 30. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so Lima, is this the type of size that you're looking for?
Yeah, exactly. And so, of course, they'll say the weakness is not being able to get off the line of scrimmage, not creating that separation. But, you know, these guys all can't be Jamar Chase.
No, of course.
And we're talking about guys at the end of the second round, end of the first round, into the beginning of the second round, where you're going to take guys that have some limitations, that don't have the full package. And that's okay, because some of those guys, believe it or not, they get better. They develop under the right coaching. It can happen. Maybe the quarterback play is elevated too, with more time to throw. If the offensive line, if you're able to fix some of those issues. So a lot of that compounds and can happen in a good way. I do like this player. So it's interesting too, the guardrails that the Browns have had over the years. You know, they really love taking young players.
Yeah.
So, you know, you want to look at guys that fit that rubric. And that goes all the way back to the Sashi Brown days, because the theory is, and you remember they had their old guardrails leaked at one point, but the theory was that, yeah, those guys are really, really young. You might be able to get them at optimal value, where if they would have stayed in school a couple of years, then they would have never been on the draft board where you would have been selecting in those given years. So, and also contracts weigh into that as well. Yeah. But I am curious. I think we're looking at wide receiver, pass rusher. That, to me, would be a little bit of surprise to me if it's something other than that.
Chris, we'll get your thoughts. I do want to take our last break here. We'll take another break, and then we will have Chris's thoughts coming up.
You're watching the True North Convenience Stores Off the Leash Draft Night Special. You're watching the True North convenience stores off the Leash Draft Night Special.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Draft Show special here. Chris, I cut you off before you could get your final word in here, but I think maybe the Jets drafting Omar Cooper might have changed potentially your thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to get a good player. Listen, once again, I say winning culture. If you want winning culture with the Jets, bring in a player who wins. So maybe he can help with the turnaround. But with the Browns looking ahead, I know, Anthony, you were talking about another receiver. Here's the biggest question, and quarterback has been such a point of contention here over the last year or so. Do the Browns possibly take another quarterback in the late rounds? Should they take another quarterback in the late rounds? And I know a name that a lot of people here locally would love to see on the Browns roster is Drew Aller, with Penn State product and out of Menor.
Well, yeah.
Menor, right?
Yeah, Drew Aller.
Yeah.
And, you know, the funny thing about the Drew Aller situation. And
Medina.
Look,
Medina,
sorry.
that's
We
right.
watched.
It was one of the
we've been covering him all the way, back Friday night. Lights. Absolutely loved covering him and then seeing him at Penn State. Things didn't work out, obviously. There was a coaching situation there, and look, the guy lost all his confidence, and then the injury.
Yeah.
Look, that would obviously be curtains for Dylan Gabriel, right? We think it's going to be curtains for Dylan Gabriel, no matter what happens. But you also wonder, this would be 2 straight years that they would, in the middle rounds, go quarterback, and that is such an analytical model, right? That quarterbacks, if you can develop them, they could become big-time assets, can actually gain value over time. We mentioned obviously he was a first-rounder back in the day, but Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, all right, let's go live to Casey Concepcion.
And your feedback from them.
Turn it down just.
Yeah. Very, very attractive. They wanted me. They wanted me. They wanted me to be able to, move around, everywhere, and be that guy, and return game.
Hey, Casey, just wanted to ask, not your side of the ball, obviously, but being from Texas A&M, what do you think it's going to be like to be teammates with another Aggie and Myles Garrett?
Oh, man, it's going to be amazing, have somebody who has came from my same alma mater, and be able to have that a role model.
Hey, KC, what would you want to tell Browns fans are your strengths as a wide receiver?
I'm versatile, I make plays. I can play, anywhere. I can run, any route. Whenever I get there, you guys are going to be getting a dog all over the field.
Hey, Casey, when did you know that the Browns were really interested in you, and how did, the pre-draft process go with visits in those meetings?
Yeah, I would say after I had, let the Browns, I was like, the Browns were, I pretty, interested, they let me know, I was, very, high on their boards, so, I knew that, if I had failed, to them, it was gonna be a very good chance that I would end up on the Browns.
Hey, Casey, I know you made a point in sort of writing that letter to all the GMs here leading up to the draft and just kind of sharing, who you are and what they're getting in a player. Why was that important to you, and what's your message to Browns fans?
I mean, my message to Browns fans is, get the popcorn ready. I'm ready right now. I'm ready to play. I'm ready to, I'm ready to, change, the organization.
Hey Casey, I know one of the things about you, throughout the draft process was some of the drops that you had last year. I know you ran the gauntlet really well. What is maybe the keys for you to make sure that the drops aren't an issue in the NFL?
After the season, I worked, nonstop at it. I knew that, I knew that, thank you. I knew that, I have had, some, confidence and drops. So, after the season, all season, during the season, I am going to work non-stop. So to fix that.
Casey, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the Browns receiving corps very much, but how excited will you be to work with?
Listening in to Casey Concepcion's first press conference as a Cleveland Brown. A quick reminder that he does have a stutter. It is difficult for him to talk in some areas, but credit to him for all of the doing this press conference, and obviously congratulations to him for getting drafted. Gentlemen, we have only a few minutes left here. There's only one more pick left in the first round. The Buffalo Bills traded back once again. So they are not making a pick. There's one more selection left. So there is a chance because Anthony Lima, as you pointed out, we have not heard yet from the general manager of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, there have been years where Andrew Berry was already out there doing the final press conference with picks left on the board. And you're like, all right, I think the work is done. We're done for the day. So that's the only reason I thought maybe there could be a shot.
So we await for the final pick here. I will now do one quick round table here with the gentlemen at this table. First, your favorite thing that the Browns did. Second, your favorite thing that happened at the draft. Let's start with you, Chris Fry.
They stuck with the script. They filled their needs immediately. The trade was great. They got the player that they wanted, and then they got the receiver that they wanted. They stuck with the script. I think another good year from Andrew Berry in the first round.
I love the trade down last year. It was something I was advocating for. I never bought into the Travis Hunter hype. Wish him all the best as he figures out just what his identity is in the NFL. And Mason Graham maybe didn't have the total consistency the entire year. But this is 2 straight years. They got a little more value. And look, I never loved this draft to begin with. So I always thought they were going to try to extract a little more value because they didn't think there was that big chasm after the top. And the fact that they got their wide receiver. Now, I would have preferred Cooper, to be honest. But either way, I think they like the versatility. They love that he's 21 years old. And, the phrase of the night, the operative phrase was twitchy. That is something they're absolutely going to love about him. And, this is going to be very interesting tomorrow with all the ammo that they have. There is still a lot of talented guys, and they're going to have the night to sleep on it and pounce in the morning.
Yeah, they got picks, and they covered everything they wanted to. So they did what they wanted to do and got ammo back. That is going to wrap up our coverage because insanely, the Seattle Seahawks are picking.
Yeah, they are.
After all that talk, they are picking with their choice on behalf of the ghost of Mark Schwab, Anthony Lima, Chris Fry, and myself, Jeff Slauson. We thank you all so much for hanging in there for the 3-hour-long draft special. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, we will have much more content to come in this full weekend of the draft. We will see you all then. Again, thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic night.
You're watching the True North Convenience Store's Off the Leash Draft Night Special.